All right. Hey, everyone. Another week, another episode of The Edge of Speculation. Roland saying, can't wait for this song in part 3. I tell you what, this, Birth of a God, Rebirth of a God, so many songs. Well, first of all, without further ado, I have with me our good friend Bunke, who is back this week again to chat FF7 Remake Chapter 18, the famous Singularity. Hey, Bunke, how's it going?
Doing great. It's going great. Thank you for having me back.
Of course, always happy to have you here. The conversation last week was amazing. Thanks so much to everyone who tuned in. Cam, Josh, lots of usuals here. Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it, Cam. Thank you so much. We got a big one today because I know I said this the last week as well, right? But this week we actually cross into the Singularity. There is so much stuff that we need to break down. There are so many, I don't know, like surprises, things that were just not kind of too confusing and did not make sense, and we're gonna have to recontextualize all of it. Mario, good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in. And I am aware we have a lot to cover. So you know what, guys? First of all, starting on Twitch as well. So this is the very first time that we're available or live on both YouTube and Twitch. So if you guys prefer to go on Twitch, I know that there are some people who prefer one or the other. Hopefully everything stays fine and nothing crashes. I am touching wood and hoping and praying with everything in my body so that this doesn't happen. Hélène, comment ça va? Well, regardless of how long you can stay, thank you so much for popping up. I mean, if it's just for 5 minutes, amazing. Thank you so much for popping up. And I was saying everything. I hope everything is going to be fine. Okay, so you guys pray. If something goes wrong, just be patient with me, but we'll bring it back up. But as so far, it's going good. So, you know, just hopefully not jinxing it. And I was saying in terms of the agenda today, we also have the famous Hamaguchi interview, Hamagoat, with another one of his famous interviews. He's been on obviously on a roll. There has been some discourse on that interview, not too much, I would say, for XYZ reason. But I'm very interested in talking about it, and Bunke also getting your thoughts on it, because Hamaguchi, Roland says, yeah, because there is a lot, for me, there is a lot to take from that interview, and I know that people say you can interpret it one way or the other. I strongly disagree with this, and we can talk about it, but I feel like this is almost as definitive as he has ever been. In terms of the nature of the re-trilogy. First of all, if you guys like this stream, as I always say, what would be amazing is for you to like it. Make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you follow on Twitch if you're watching on Twitch. This is the best way to support the channel. Thank you so much to everyone who has been tuning into these streams so that we make sure that more people are obviously taking part of this conversation, as I've been talking about it the past couple of weeks since that famous discourse happened with sequel, not a sequel, remake, blah, blah, blah. For me, the biggest thing has been, can we have a platform where both sides can talk without necessarily any animosity or like, you know, without necessarily making it even a debate? It's just sharing thoughts and ideas with each other. And obviously there will be some bias here because of the opinions we have, but the idea is that if we can get the maximum amount of people who disagree with us, that would be even better, right? We want everyone, those who agree and those who disagree. That's exactly what do you think, Bunke? Are you still, hold on. Is there any sound issues? Can you hear me, Bunke? Hopefully all is coming through. Everyone is wrong anyway. Yeah, we're all wrong until we see what really happens. Singularity is typically a fixed point in time that has completely collapsed. Yeah, Josh, it's also the one moment in time where everything branches out from, right? If you think about it that way. Right. So should we start with the Hamaguchi interview?
Yeah.
Right. Let's start with the Hamaguchi interview. Where do I get this thing running? Sorry, guys. I'm you know, it's Saturday afternoon. I should be on the peak of my energy, but I'm not. For whatever reason. So hazy, so hard to do things. But it's all right. Okay. This famous Hamaguchi interview. So let's talk about this. This is something that was published in Nintenderos. It's in Spanish, so this is obviously Google translation. I mean, for what it's worth, there might be some differences, but I doubt that it's going to be that big. And this has been released on May 12th, which means that it's probably the most recent one we have. I caught something from Remake The Road Ends to me because, like Sephiroth says, what lies beyond hasn't happened yet. Yeah, exactly, Roland. I think that goes in the same sense of Singularity is the one moment out of which decisions are made and paths branch out, right? So Hamaguchi, director of Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, talks to us about the Switch 2 version and the future of the trilogy. Let's talk about this interview. Again, we will make sure that it's 10-15 minutes max because we really want to talk about Final Fantasy VII Remake, Chapter 18. Inaya. Hold on. Inayat Black, thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. You two helped me understand the story more. Thank you. Reminds me of Persona. Thank you so much for the love. Really appreciate it. So happy and, I'll say humbled to be able to hear that we've helped someone experience the story differently or better. That's the goal. I'm so happy to hear that. Thank you so much once again for the super chat. Appreciate it. Right. So Hamagoat, what is going on? Hold on. First of all, let me fix a very small thing here, guys. Okay, all good. So, latest interview. Following the recent release of FF7 Remake on Switch and with Final Fantasy VII Rebirth just around the corner on Switch, obviously, we had the opportunity to speak with Hamaguchi, the lead developer behind this ambitious Square Enix trilogy. In this interview, the director offers a detailed and straightforward look at the development, technical challenges, and narrative of the project. At what point in development did you decide you wanted to bring Rebirth to Switch? From my point of view, once we decided to release Remake on Switch, it was clear from the beginning that releasing only the first game was not an option. It makes total sense. You gotta bring the whole trilogy, right? This project was designed as a trilogy from the start. There you go. Since the gameplay experience is structured to build upon each installment, I believe that if the games required switching platforms, the series wouldn't hold up as a whole. Yeah, you can't play Remake on Switch and then be asked to play Rebirth on PS5. It doesn't make sense. Of course, Rebirth is much larger in scale than Remake, and the transition to an open world format raised the technical hurdles enormously. However, at that time, the important question wasn't can we do it? We always approached the challenge with the premise of figuring out what needed to be done to make it work. There's really no magic formula that guarantees a successful port. We've meticulously checked every single element, rendering, graphics, loading, and more, and made countless adjustments. I believe we've managed to bring Rebirth to a level of quality we're satisfied with. This is the same stuff that we've been hearing. Sound is good. Drum Jod, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Very first Twitch comment or chat. Appreciate it. So this is the question we really want to hear about, right? The concept of defying fate, introduced in Final Fantasy VII Remake, plays an important role. Would you say there are limits to how much the story can deviate from the original? Look at this spicy question. By the way, this is one of the best journalists that have interviewed Hamaguchi in a while. I'm not sure if the question was prepared, but this is a great question. Right, the answer. Since we're telling this story as a trilogy, it's essential to keep players engaged until the very end. For that reason, we've structured the narrative so that the central question, whether the protagonist's fates will truly change, remains unresolved until the finale. However, this doesn't mean everything can change. From the beginning, we decided that we couldn't compromise the emotional core of the characters. The reason FF7 has been loved for so many years, for the fundamental themes the story presents to players. There are elements we've changed to create that pulse-pounding sense of unpredictability, and elements that allow those familiar with the original to feel... Okay. This is truly FF7. If we lean too heavily toward either of those aspects, the game simply wouldn't work. Rebirth isn't a game that blurs the line. It's a game where we deliberately chose to make changes and preservation coexist. While introducing changes to shake up expectations, we protect the core that must remain until the very end. We believe this balance is the most important aspect of this trilogy. I really want to talk about this, guys, okay? Because I talked about it on Twitter, X, for whoever is following or having a conversation there. I want to talk about it for one reason, because we have been hearing for a while that, and some of the good friends that I talk with online, I'm not saying that this is a bad thing, but a lot of people say that Hamaguchi's interviews, Hamaguchi has mastered the art of saying or telling everyone what they want to hear. And while I understand that he's a director and that this can come across as being the case in a lot of interviews. Yes, I agree that there are a lot of interviews where he's kind of threading a fine line between the two. I still strongly believe that there are some quotes that are, obviously he knows everything that he's going to say beforehand. He knows what he's doing. I'm not saying that he's making mistakes, but what I'm saying is that I don't think that every single line that he says can be interpreted as this is a sequel or this is a remake or the story will change or the story will not change, regardless of whether sequel equals the story doesn't change or whatever. I believe that there are quotes where I'm not going to say he has been definitive, but there are a lot of quotes where that fine line is not so fine anymore, like this one. So I'll try to deconstruct to the best that I can, and then Bunke, you can tell me if you agree or disagree, or if there are things that you want to add, but I'll just try to break down what he was trying to say. Okay, they're asking him, Defying Fate was introduced. Would you say that there are limits to how much the story will deviate? This is as clear of a question as you can get around the nature of the trilogy, right? What he answered is, let's flip the sentence, right? In order to keep players engaged until the very end, and given that it's a trilogy, we have structured the narrative so that the central question remains unresolved until the finale. Let's flip this. What he's saying essentially is the reason behind using this narrative around defying fate and whether the protagonist's fates will truly change, remaining unresolved until the finale, is that we wanted to keep players engaged until the very end. Why am I reframing it this way? Because I've been hearing a lot, what is the point of all of this? I would love to just screenshot this, print it, and, and stick it in the room of everyone who plays Final Fantasy VII Remake and wonders about why there are changes. And I say this with all the love in the world, because at the end of the day, we're just talking about a freaking video game, okay? The reason behind the changes is to keep players engaged until the very end. I know that people don't like it and say, well, it's a failure then. That is not good that is not good writing. First of all, writing can be good or bad subjectively. This is still art, so you could like something or dislike it. There is no objective measure for writing that is universally accepted. Some people will like stories, some people will dislike stories, unless something is so blatantly bad. It has so many plot holes and inconsistencies, which I'm pretty sure is not the case for Remake or the original FF7 guys, right? I think we can agree on this. Unless this is an absolute mess, then it's all subjective. When we talk about, is this good or bad writing? Okay, so let's put that question of, is this a good trope? For me, it is a good trope. Maybe for someone else, it's not the case, right? He is saying that the only reason, or the main reason why the protagonist's fate is being put into question, and we are giving you the impression that maybe it can change, maybe it cannot change, is to keep you engaged. So I've been, again, hearing this question all the time, and this is the clearest answer I can give. I'm sorry, people, when we have conversations online, a lot of people say, okay, but do you think this is good? I can't tell you whether this is good or not. I can only have a conversation with you about the intention of the writer from what I'm seeing from the game and what I'm hearing from the interviews. But I can't tell you whether this is good or bad because you have to judge by yourself whether you like it or not. I personally love it. Some people don't, and it's completely fine, right? What I don't like is if the story is not exactly this, then it's bad. So that's a completely different discussion. Now, what does he say afterwards? I just want us to focus on how he's phrasing his thoughts here. However, it doesn't mean that everything can change. I don't know if he would put such if he would be as clear cut if he was still having doubts around where the story is going, or if we should have doubts around how. If you were planning to, I'm not going to say change the story, but if you were aware and accept the fact that this is a story that can be a sequel or bigger than the original in terms of the ending and wherever and whatnot, do you think that the director will sit here and say, well, the only reason or the main reason we did it is to keep you engaged. However, maybe not everything can change. I don't think he would say any of that here. Like, if he wanted to keep the ambiguity around maybe the story will deviate so much that it doesn't lead to something that was supposed to happen afterwards, he would not be saying this, guys. Unless we call him a liar, which, again, I don't want to have that conversation because for me, yeah, it's just nonsense. Bunke, I don't know what you think. I know we're on the same page, so I don't want to like us to keep just, confirming each other's opinion. But I don't know how you can interpret it any differently, right?
Yeah, the thing here is that when they decided that it was going to be a multi-part series. I mean, they didn't know at the beginning whether or not it was going to be 2, 3, 4 parts, and then they eventually, after remake, they landed on 3 parts. The number
Yeah.
one issue that they had in mind, and you got to think about this from a business perspective, how do we keep fans engaged? Because it's going to be at least 3 years in between each one of these games.
Yeah.
And if they were to do a 1-to-1 remake, I don't think that you can make an honest argument that people will stay so engaged in between releases. So the narrative is doing just that. It's killing 2 birds with 1 stone. On one end, it's giving us something new that we weren't expecting when the game was first announced, when the project was first announced. But also going into this thing of keeping players engaged. From a business perspective, it makes total sense what they're doing. And really, what Hamaguchi is saying here is something that Katase has said before, and I think that one of the most important things that he said was the previous sentence: "We protect the core that must remain until the very end."
Absolutely.
It's a game, it's a game, and he also is saying that that change and preservation are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
It's like you can do both.
And that's what Rebirth is.
Right, exactly. Do I think that the ending to this trilogy is going to be same as OG? No.
Not exactly the same.
No, not exactly the same.
Yeah.
Because I think there's a difference between adding to the story versus changing the story. I say that the former is definitely going to happen, but the latter is not. I don't think he's going to change the main story that we came to know of Final Fantasy VII. And he specifically mentions about the theme. The theme of Final Fantasy VII, everybody knows it. It's the theme of life, death, and perseverance.
And we need ground rules of what change in the story is, because if we're going to have a conversation about that, what does it mean? And the loudest I've been hearing recently is, well, Advent Children maybe does not happen because of Geostigma. Guys, do you realize how important Geostigma is? I don't want to make a case for Genova and Geostigma. This is not what I'm about to do. However, the whole point of the Lifestream erupting to the surface was to save the planet from humans first. And then from the harm that humans did. And then eventually to spare humans. Change when we go to Rocket Town, Roland. I agree. Maybe that's where the change is. Geostigma serves as a reminder. The Lifestream erupting to the planet and all the chaos and fear that it caused in people long after the events of Final Fantasy VII that we see on the Way to a Smile and in Advent Children and even Dirge of Cerberus, because I believe that Geostigma is still a thing by then. The whole point of that fear that was instilled in humans is to teach them a lesson. You can't drain the planet of its spiritual energy. Just explain to me how we can land on a good ending where humanity still learns a lesson without, like, meteor happening, or with the Lifestream not behaving the way it did, or with Cloud not beating Sephiroth the same way. I don't know. Just give me a possibility of how can humans learn the same lesson, which we see 500 years forward, that humanity is blooming around Midgar. That is the best kind of proof that humanity has learned. Life is blooming around Midgar. Best proof that humanity has learned how to live with nature, because otherwise Midgar would be Neo-Midgar, right? For example. And this is the best example we have, and I still haven't found one single way of teaching humans the same lesson while having a good ending. Geostigma is not a good ending and is not a bad ending. It is just the ending. That's just what happens. In real life, you don't get to choose whether something good happens or something bad happens. Geostigma being seen at the end of credits would be sick. Pun intended. Yeah.
By the way, I will also say that that when you look at the events of all that led up to Final Fantasy VII, I'm of the belief that Genova was behind all of it. I mean, all of it. The formation of Shinra, the soldier program, Sephiroth's birth, all of it was Genova's doing. But Genova didn't just hypnotize humans. Humans went along with it. Were they influenced? Sure. But
Yeah.
they still had the choice. And in fact, I would say that Sephiroth is the ultimate tragic villain because
Yes.
it is still remains to be seen whether or not he really had a choice because he's literally part alien. So part of his nature is not human. So, but humans don't have that same excuse. And it goes back to what in Ever Crisis when their founder was talking about the planet is just listening and the planet is just observing what humans are going to do. Because
Yeah.
really we are duplicitous in this. We are co-conspirators to what Genova has done to the planet because we have made machines that suck the planet dry. So basically we're doing Genova's work for her.
Absolutely. And just obviously to switch gears and still will answer Victor here because I think it's relevant to your point, Bunke. Does your guest think Genova gave the humans knowledge of the reactors? I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think, yeah, the idea is that at the very least it motivated them to seek something as, I'm not going to say evil or as dystopian as reactors and soldier and all this kind of stuff and mass immune. Like crafting the mass immune is the best example for that. Like a sword so evil and so, I'm not going to say mesmerizing, but in a bad way, right? It kind of corrupts souls and it controls the mind of humans. Is something that can only be incited by Genova. And in the first soldier, it's clearly implied that Genova is what triggered Masamune to forge Masamune. And so this is the kind of stuff where Genova becomes very important. I wanted to comment on one thing that Mario said, which I think is a great point to land on. Lately, I've been thinking that they are developing the trilogy in a way where everything we're being shown is the first time it's happening. Thank you so much. Because as soon as you get your... forget about the OG. Let's imagine the OG doesn't exist up to now, right? Let's just think about the destination of the OG, but not the whole process. Is it still possible for the remake trilogy to tell you at the end that the OG is essentially the conclusion of everything that happened? Not in the sense that remake is a prequel, in the sense that it gives you an insight into what was really happening behind the veil, which is essentially the live stream. Whether that is in a moment where Cloud is inside the live stream or just generally what was happening within the live stream is obviously just, technical formalities. But the most important thing is that there is a conflict. There are black whispers. There are white whispers. There is change in fate. There is not change in fate. What we believe within the group of people who don't think the story will change is that remake is showing you how we get to the resolution that the OG gets to. That's it. And I know, like we've been talking, like Subtext, for example, has his video about synthesis, the thesis, antithesis, and then synthesis. I believe that the synthesis is the end of the OG, is that humans will be spared. Humans will not go extinct. However, they will learn a valuable lesson that they can't mess with spiritual energy. This is for me the synthesis. Can humans be saved is probably the thesis. The antithesis is that they can't be saved maybe. So the synthesis would be, well, they can be saved with a condition. This is the whole point of the story. Why? Because Final Fantasy VII tries to portray a realistic story. It does not try to go into a pure fantasy where you could just live happily ever after and there is absolutely no evil on the planet. This is not what Final Fantasy VII is. Final Fantasy VII ends by telling you that humanity was spared at the very last second and that it will have to learn its valuable lesson and that it will have to learn to be one with the planet. That's it.
Yeah, and I think that and so everyone was talking about, of course, the whole idea of fate, but maybe the answer is so basic that again, the thought that the idea of us, the fact that we are fans and we know the ending might actually be used against us. I talked about this in the last stream. Maybe the fate that we're talking about is the fate of humanity.
Yeah.
Or we're going to defy the fate. I mean, because remember,
is it going to be saved or not?
Right, because in Bugenhagen even says in the original that even if he thinks that everything is going to die. He thinks that we're fated to die. So maybe that again, I think that we need to really kind of sit back and look at the story for what it is instead of what we want it to be. Because again, the meta narrative here is that our distorted perceptions. Everyone had a distorted perception of how the story of Final Fantasy VII continues after OG. Everyone has this this idea that they was in paradise. So then when Advent Children came out and you find out it wasn't a paradise because Genova is still around and Geostigma, people got really people were kind of disillusioned by that. But that's life. That's realistic
You don't
portrayal.
get a happy ending in life.
Yeah, exactly. This is not Disney. This is not, I'm sorry. It's this That's not it. And it's just and it's interesting though, because I just watched Final Weapon. I love his work. But again,
Yeah.
I don't like the conclusion that's reached here, because he's trying to say that the Advent Children is a bad ending because of Geostigma and because of Sephiroth coming back. Well, yeah, Geostigma was healed, and Sephiroth was defeated yet again at the end,
Yeah.
and we see Cloud smile. So, I mean, all of the issues that were presented in the film were resolved,
Yeah.
But again, because it wasn't done in a Disney-like fashion where everybody lives together and hold hands, they think it's a bad ending. No, it's the distorted perceptions.
Because it's a realistic story. It tries to
Yeah.
portray real human experience. And as you say, real human experience is no Disney. And you're not just going to get Geostigma to disappear and Sephiroth and Genova to disappear just because you fought them once and that's it. Like, humans are going to have to learn. Because why does Sephiroth enact his plan to begin with? Is because he uses a breach or a loophole in the planet's system of will, whatever that is, which wants to punish humans for the amount of spiritual energy that they've been draining from the planet. So Sephiroth just inserts himself in that equation. The anger towards human was already there because humans were draining the planet of its spiritual energy. So if you tell me that the conflict gets resolved by just stopping Meteor, but humans don't learn their lesson, then I'm curious to know how that specific ending is going to work. How do humans... The only thing... This is my question to everyone so that we wrap it up, because obviously we spend a lot of time here. My only question, if we are suggesting a better ending than FF7, is, okay, great, I'm willing to hear, but how is there an ending where humans still learn their lesson? This is my only question. Josh, thank you so much for the super chat once again. One of the oldest... one of the first subscribers in the channel. We've been having so many chats. Writing decisions are not always about stories. Sometimes it's about toying with the audience. And this is what Hamaguchi says here. It's because, how did he phrase it? It's because we wanted to keep players engaged. And there's nothing bad with that. Why are we saying that? Well, what's the point of all of this? Is it just to keep the conversation? Yes, it is just to keep the conversation going. If we didn't have that, then we wouldn't be sitting here and talking about it. It's as simple as that. Or change in perspective. The original didn't present Cloud's arc well enough. I totally agree, especially towards the end, after the Lifestream sequence. I feel like there is so much we still didn't know about Cloud, and I feel like Advent Children did a much better job to show us what Cloud's struggle really was. Right. I think the end. Yeah.
I was just going to say that it's. I wanted to reply, which is Roland was saying that Geostigma healed in Midgar. What about the rest of the world? But there's nothing to suggest that the rest of the world couldn't have been healed. I mean, I don't think they need to go to the point where they have to show everything and where there's absolutely no ambiguity. Yes, I mean, we know that Sephiroth at the very end says, "I will never be a memory," but that's not really Sephiroth. Sephiroth is dead. That's Genova speaking. But even with Genova in the live stream, still 500 years later, the planet is thriving. So just because Genova still exists doesn't mean that it precludes a happy ending. And I think that and Cloud, is he happy at the end? No, he's not happy, but you see the seeds of that being a possibility. Unlike at the beginning of the film, you didn't. You just saw him being depressed and etc. over what happened to Aerith and Zack. But at the end, you see him smile, which you only see that a handful of times throughout the entire saga of Cloud Strife. And so again, the game doesn't, the film doesn't necessarily go into great detail, but you see that they're on the path.
They're rebuilding.
They're rebuilding, right? It's going to be a slow process. Again, going back to the realistic aspect. This is not a Disney film.
Yeah, and Roland, no pun intended, but I can roll with your logic here of this not being a good ending. I can understand the internal logic of your thought. My point is that why do we need a good ending in a story that is supposed to convey real human emotions? I will add that On the Way to a Smile does a great job to show you that for like a year or so, they are in great shape. Cloud smiles a lot. In fact, On the Way to a Smile tells you that when they are aboard the High Wind, and I believe one of the last cutscenes of the... Because On the Way to a Smile, guys, also tells you things from the OG. We kind of forget this. On the Way to a Smile is essentially a link between the last moments of the OG, not just after the OG. On the Way to a Smile covers events that happened within the OG and explains them very well, especially when it comes to like Rufus's survival, for example. And what it does for Cloud is that it shows you that at that moment, he is smiling a lot and he's back to his true self and he is healing. When do Cloud's issues arise again? Couple of things. When Geostigma becomes a big thing, in the sense that Jenova is literally spreading hatred and despair through the Lifestream. This is what Geostigma is. Even Nanaki feels it, and we can talk about that one day. And the other thing is that Elmira sends him to deliver flowers to the Forgotten Capital. We all know why she sent him there. And he comes back not in a good shape. And Tifa notices it. And even after that, he kind of has a good conversation with Tifa, and they decide to adopt Denzel because he thinks that Denzel will be, you know, a good chance for him at redemption. Tifa lives with a big guiltiness conscience, guys. That is the same for Barrett. And that is the same for Yuffie, who learns it eventually. And that is the same for Cloud. The biggest theme of On the Way to a Smile in Advent Children is learning to live with the guilt. Because we forget that Cloud literally almost brought about the end of humanity. Cloud needed redemption and needed to come to terms with his sins. Roland says Sephiroth turning Lifestream from green to black is like Geostigma for the planet's memory system. I totally agree, and I think we're just seeing that process that will eventually end with, like, Geostigma is what is going to be the last remnants in the Lifestream of whatever we're seeing in Remake. Geostigma is what's left over from the whispers and the whole black Lifestream shenanigans we're seeing in Remake.
By the way, I just wanted to point it out that in Cloud, when Cloud and Advent Children, Cloud doesn't hallucinate like he is right now, and like he did in the original. I mean, that actually shows that he was healing.
Yeah.
Because when you look at the effect that Jenova has on him right now during the remake series, and look at the effect. I mean, you see the effect at the very beginning while he was at Zack's grave.
Exactly. He has a glitch, but it's not the same.
Right, it's not the same. He's not wondering what's fact and what's fiction. He knows what's real. So again, my biggest criticism of Advent Children is that they didn't do a good job. On the Way to a Smile should have been the prologue.
I agree.
That should all have been covered before. That should have been part of the film. That all should have been covered, and because then that would have given so much context. Otherwise, people will go into going to the film like I did. Like, okay, why the heck is he depressed? I mean, I thought that everything, so at one point I kind of understand why people thought that Advent Children was bad, because they didn't see what happened afterwards. That they actually started rebuilding their life.
The worst thing about sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say that, like Barrett leaving to find oil, look in the replacement for Mako, and Red 13 going back to Cosmo Canyon, Yuffie going back home. And we see all of this stuff going on. But again, if you never read the book, you will never get the sense of that. So I think, to me, that this is rectifying one of my biggest issues with Advent Children, not explaining what happened in those 2 years between the end of OG and Advent Children's beginning.
If I was to summarize it, the worst thing about Advent Children and On the Way to a Smile is that On the Way to a Smile was not included in the movie, or we did not see as much of it. Roland says, let's not spend a lot of time on this segment. We're talking about 7R. Every discussion needs to be hours long. I fully agree. We'll see Advent Children differently after Trilogy. The symbolism of Sephiroth raising his hand. Yeah. Just Mario Brush, just to confirm, I agree. I'm not sure if you've seen the Sephiroth video, but I totally agree with your idea that the 3 remnants are essentially... So think about the Advent Children remnants as coming from Remake, not the opposite. Right? Just think about the scenes you see in Advent Children as the result of Remake memories. Remake is the origin, and then the 3 remnants are coming from there. Don't think about the story in the timeline that you experienced it, because you experienced Advent Children in 2005, and then you experienced it in Remake in 2020. Flip them. Imagine that you experienced if we experienced Remake before Advent Children, would we really be saying that it's a sequel? I don't think we would. Really have to. I agree, Roland. Let's move to what we really wanted to analyze. Now, the rest of the interview will not dive into it. He's just saying that Zack's role will be still more prominent. and that there is some foreshadowing. He kind of deviates. He kind of deflects the tricky questions there. He says that he likes seeing people theorize, but that he does not necessarily. He's not gonna say. I know that he wanted to say that the theory video that we published, that I posted like a few months back, is the best one, but he obviously refused to say that. But I know that's what he's thinking. What level of detail, blah, blah, blah. It's just obviously stuff to promote kind of the Switch release. So, guys, I know that what we are really here for is this, my friends. Whatever happens inside the Singularity. Guys, I have a big surprise for you once we get to the famous Red 13 line. If you are patient until we get to the famous Red 13 line, and if everyone clicks the like button right now, and the subscribe button right now, and the share button right now, I have a good surprise for you. A great quote that I think a lot of you... Spoiler alert! It's from On the Way to a Smile. Get spicy now.
I just want to interject something here.
Yeah.
For those of you, this is from the horse's mouth. So this is from the person who wrote all of this.
Yeah.
So this is one of those things where I don't want to play it up too much, but I want to just say that what C has in store for you is not really open for interpretation as much as you think, because you can't. This is not from someone that he found on Twitter or found a good quote.
Absolutely. What I'm saying, quote, I'm saying it's from a canon story. From On the Way to a Smile, to be specific.
Yes.
Okay? Spoiler alert, it's linked to Red 13. I can't make it more explicit than this.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. Last time, guys, so for people who are joining this stream, like joining a stream in the channel for the first time, thank you so much. Welcome in. This is a part 2 of the Singularity analysis. Last Saturday, we stopped right after they crossed into the Singularity, and today we will carry on and analyze essentially what is happening here and try to theorize a bit around what this really means. Okay? So, we have spoken about Aerith's role, how she casts whatever she casts, the whole conversation about destiny and whatnot, the whole subtext, blah, 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 blah. Now, what is going to happen beyond is very important for me because there is a lot of deception, guys, happening. I can tell you this. The first thing I want you all to pay attention to, look at where they're coming from, okay? What is behind them here? Let me get a better shot. Can we get a good shot of what's behind them? We can't, but hopefully when they cross into the... Anyways, we know that the toll booth is behind them, right? But that's kind of clear for everyone because that's what you cross, okay? They walk into the Singularity, which was black and purple, but then when Aerith did something to it, it became white as well. So it's kind of like there is a crisis inside of it, okay? Look at... this is literally the edge of the expressway, guys. You can see it because literally, if they run here, they would just fall, okay? So just remember that this is literally the end of the road in a literal sense, not a metaphorical one. Yeah, and then Barrett's monologue about he's always defied destiny, doesn't matter if you see a wall or not, blah, 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 blah. Okay? So they enter. Now I have a question. And the question is the following. Why the hell are they walking back into Midgar? Do you guys remember the end of the road? It's literally behind them now. They are not coming from the same direction. Look at this. This is where they came from. I'm not sure if people have caught this detail. The party left Midgar and then entered. I don't know if it's another Midgar. I don't know if it's the same Midgar. Something weird has happened. We have Nojima on record saying the following, and we will see it in detail as well once we get to those specific details. And that was in one of the Rebirth Ultimanias. So let's go look at New World being created from here. Let's look at what Nojima-san says, okay? The structure of this world has become quite clear. Basically, the world is changing because Cloud and his friends destroyed the Wall of Destiny. Yes, that's correct. The idea is that once you step beyond the Wall of Fate, a new world is being constructed. And it's difficult to explain without giving away spoilers. What Nojima is telling us is that the party very likely already walked into a new world being constructed. Now, when is the world being constructed? We will actually see it live. Look at this. They walk into Midgar once again. They walk to the area which they came from. Okay? What is going to happen afterwards? They don't see anything. Nothing happens. And then they see tornadoes, purple tornadoes. I wonder who if whispers are literally swarming a purple area, then I wonder who's controlling the whispers, guys. It can only be Genova. And I've had a conversation with someone on Twitter telling me, not everything purple in Final Fantasy VII indicates Genova influence. And I'm like, in Lifestream shenanigans, what could it be? I'm curious to know what it could be. But anyways, on a side note, look at it with what's going to happen. You're going to see Midgar being duplicated. This is what Nojima means when he says a new world is being created. Look at it. Stuff is being pulled from the ground and duplicated. Obviously, you can't see it here, but you're going to see it now. Look at that. You see how it went up? It is duplicated now. And it's going upwards towards the... So the tornado is absorbing everything from Midgar and making a new version. Okay? Look at the imagery around the... These are memories. It's almost Lifestream particles or flow or whatever. Okay? Look at these memories. Look at these purple, white, and green streams. Okay? How they are flying with Midgar. Look at this expressway. Look at this area. It's literally pulled from the ground. But the original one doesn't disappear, so it's a duplication. Now, what can we say about the party? Does it mean that the party was also duplicated at this moment? Given that Midgar is being duplicated, is it possible that the party is also being duplicated? Considering we have a party that goes into Terrier and a party that goes into Beagle. We've had a conversation last week and before about where does the party branch out. And I think this is one of the other hints that it might be here where we see the party that goes into Terrier that is unconscious and then the other party which carries on to Beagle. I will stop it for a quick... we have a lot to discuss obviously here, but I wanted to move to the most important parts, okay guys? The party is being duplicated the same way as Midgar is, probably. Now, pay attention to what happens to Cloud. I want you all to focus. During this whole segment, guys, I want us to focus on Cloud. Let's just do a thought experiment. It is not in Cloud's head. This is not what we're saying. Let's just focus as much as possible on Cloud. Whenever Cloud appears, let's notice what's happening with him. Okay. Cloud is flying off, just like everyone. Memories. Whatever. We only see Cloud now, right? We don't see the rest of the party. He is still conscious, right? Black screen. What the hell is this dude doing here? Why is he unconscious all of a sudden? If there is no subversion happening here, then why did they make Cloud unconscious for a moment? Couldn't we have just transitioned to the new Midgar while Cloud was still conscious? I mean, everything was being taken into the freaking tornado.
Right, and here's the thing, though, is that it says there is a scene in the original game where Cloud is in an exact same position, upside down with his eyes closed. So think about when that is happening, and then think about what you see in Rebirth. I mean, it's an obvious reference there. You know, Cloud upside down, eyes closed. Exactly. There you go. It's that smoking gun right there, and this is when I tell people all the time when I first saw Steve's video, he showed this, and he happened to land on that specific frame where we see Cloud upside down with his eyes closed, and that's when it all clicked for me. You see the Lifestream particles here?
Yeah, he's traveling through the tunnel, and we're gonna see it in Remake too.
Right, and we're going to see it, and that's what I realized, and that's when I started to realize that
Roland is asking a good question. Sorry to keep interrupting you, because I got so excited for Roland's question. Was he duplicated in the OG? No, his spirit was taken out from his body. If we apply the same logic here, what happened to Cloud at this moment? His consciousness was taken somewhere else, guys. I don't know where we're just taking it at face value now. We don't know where he went. We're just saying his consciousness went somewhere else. In the same fashion, yeah.
We saw this at the end of Rebirth too. Remember, that he disappeared after the fight with Genova Lifeklinger. Yuffie was like, "Did they take him?"
Where's this guy?
Where is he? So we've actually seen this a few times now.
And we've seen Zack do it as well when Sephiroth throws him into the abyss. And we've seen Cloud do it in chapter 14 when he falls with Aerith as well. He is fallen and he opens his eyes after all the dreams. there is a lot happen. A lot happens whenever we get Cloud opening his eyes. Is the only thing I want to say. Whenever this guy closes his eyes and reopens them, just be skeptical. Is all I want to say. Be skeptical when this happens. Here it is. Now, there is a lot of symbolism that I want to show you here. He wakes up, right? He's looking at the Midgar that was being pulled upwards, right? We are still following the same thing. The yellow orb minutes ago could be white materia summoning something to Cloud. Mario Brush, we will get to the white materia. Oh, you wait. Oh, you wait. Don't worry. This is... So, he's looking at probably at the Midgar that either is being constructed, the new world, or the one that was already below them. We don't know. And it doesn't matter anyways, right? Hey, Reminils. Look at the symbolism here, guys. The whispers... This is almost like the whisper scene in Rebirth where 3 whispers come from behind him and go into the Destiny wall. Sector 7 still on fire, Roland says? Where's Sector 7?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there to the left. Right there to the left.
Huh. Well, that is interesting.
Yeah.
It is still in fire. Well, that was not the case when they left for the Shinra building, was it? Now there is a link. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, if I could mention that if you have a slight deja vu here with Cloud floating in the air, when's the last time did you see Cloud floating in the air like that? If you think about it, that was back in the VR. Remember they were floating in the air when they saw the vision of the bad ending when Cloud doesn't recover and Meteor hits and there is no Lifestream and there's no Holy. You remember how the party it was floating out in the air just like you're seeing now. And I think that might be a deep cut hint as to how we are to interpret this.
There is something wrong with his perception.
Yes, most definitely.
Roland, you notice things way more than time to time. There were small fires and smoke rising when they were climbing, I remember. Oh, yeah, I might have just misremembered it, but it still looked like the day Sector 7 played fall, almost, right? Fell. So, look at the whispers coming from... Where are the whispers coming from, guys? So, is he inside the tornado now? Like, what's going on? He's almost inside the tornado, right? The whispers are coming through him. Almost as if... Look at the symbolism here. They're gonna have a great shot, by the way. Like, look at this. This is almost telling you that as if the whispers are emerging from him. Or they are consistent with him or whatever. I'm thinking of a good way to phrase it. He's almost looking at the whispers coming from him and forming something. Is it the thing he fears the most? Is it his fate? We don't know. But this process starts to be very individual when we get here. And by the way, what looks like a rift once again, Bunkei, but we've established the other day that it's the horizon. Here again, it looks like a rift. Look at the imagery, right? So green, purple, and some kind of white, right? So there is that. It's almost a crisis. So what's going on? The Harbinger is being constructed. The Harbinger is forming, okay? I mean, the Harbinger was not there before.
Right. And even in the description, it says that the Harbinger is a accretion of whispers, yes. A collection of whispers. And I just want to put this out to you, everyone. Harbinger. Is this the first time we've seen Harbinger referenced in Final Fantasy VII? Trick question here.
I've seen it somewhere else.
Forget about remake for a second. When is the first time have you heard the term Harbinger in Final Fantasy VII?
I'm trying to remember.
No, it's Advent Children. Remember when Vincent was talking about that, that Genova
she's the Harbinger, yes.
She's the heaven's dark harbinger.
Yes, absolutely.
So that was in reference to Genova. So, okay, so we see the Whisper Harbinger in purple. Harbinger, a noun that we've seen before, the reference by Vincent Advent Children. Okay, if it walks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, I'm going to call it like it is. That calls it like it is. And that's why I want everyone to, we talk about this a little bit off air.
Yeah.
If you guys are going to be playing Remake, I'm pretty sure between now and Part 3, you're going to replay Remake and Rebirth again to prepare yourself. Look at it through a critical eye.
Absolutely. Just be
Don't
skeptical.
Right. Be skeptical. Don't necessarily believe everything.
Yeah.
I mean, I just want to put this out there. This would not be the first time the game has lied to you.
Yeah.
It did it in OG2. I mean, the game is full of lies, half truths, and stuff taken out of context. I mean, it's all part of the Final Fantasy VII experience.
And
So I'm just asking.
further than that, Carl Jung obviously cited as one of the many big influences behind FF7, the FF7 story. Not just the remake. Carl Jung's influence is on the OG as well. So just as a heads up, because I know that people kind of take that quote and run with it as in this is only in remake. No. Jungian psychology is the crux of Final Fantasy VII, right? And I'm aware that people talk about Persona as well. I haven't played Persona, but I'm aware that that's a big thing there as well. Okami says, I agree with you here, Sid. Yeah, I mean, it just makes sense. I want you guys to look at this quote. It is only in modern times that the dream, this fleeting and insignificant looking product of the psyche, has met with such profound contempt. Obviously, is that people just ignore it, right? Formerly, it was esteemed as a harbinger of fate, a portent and comforter, a messenger of the gods. Now we see it as the emissary of the unconscious, whose task it is to reveal the secrets that are hidden from the conscious mind. And this it does with astounding completeness. According to Jungian psychology, dreams can be the harbinger of your fate. The literal harbinger of fate is dreams, because they bring, and I'm not sure if people here have watched the breakdown with it of chapter 14 of Rebirth, and how it looks like one big dream that Cloud has coming from his unconscious. But what dreams do is that they bring unconscious and repressed aspects to your conscious that the conscious cannot understand that stuff because it's kind of hidden from it, right? It's not on a surface level. But the dreams are the one tool that the unconscious has to be able to communicate with the conscious, and it's considered a harbinger of fate. Now, the association with dreams here is not innocent, especially when we've seen this guy literally just wake up, being unconscious and then literally just waking up. Now, the next big influence or big thing that is happening here. This is the chest of the Harbinger, right? I think we can all agree on that. Let's just start from something that is clear. This is literally the chest of the Harbinger, right? And let me maybe rewind so that we have it in the middle. Okay? Just look at this very well, right? Just remember what this looks like. Where's a good old Final Fantasy OG? I love this music. Where is our good old friend Sephiroth? A lot of people have talked about this one, by the way. Do you guys see this? This is the area where Sephiroth is blocking Holy. It is extremely similar. Someone talked about the white materia before. Purple is absolutely code for Jenova Reminels. Yes. So what we can say here is that there is possibly the implication that the Harbinger was blocking, was suppressing Holy inside of it. Now remember, Holy's purpose is to counter whatever black Lifestream stuff there is. The easiest explanation I can give to the white materia and Holy today is that it acts as a counter to the black materia. If it's Meteor, it's supposed to stop Meteor. If it's the reunion of worlds, it's supposed to stop the reunion of worlds, because that's what happens in Rebirth, okay? Bahamut-like hand, yeah, I kind of agree on the influence there.
And Steve, if I can interject here for just 1 second about, so it's Meteor, it's not just the impact of Meteor that serves Genova's goals. It's the anticipation of it. The fact that, you remember in Interior World, you see people talking about the end of the world, and you see them being sad about not being able to do the things that they want to do. That's all serving, that's all igniting the sight and the despite and the sorrow that you see Sephiroth's reference on that. It all feeds into that. So it's not just the fact that Jenova impacting the planet, but even its approach and and the negative feelings that it stirs within humans, that also is what Jenova feeds off of. And it's something, as I said before, Jenova is a memory parasite. Yes. Memory is her battleground. That's her weapon of choice.
And that's why And that's why the Geese role as well is great in terms of showing us what that looks like. They are saying that their world was torn apart, that their skies shattered or ripped or whatever. It is all very intentional. Meteor is not only the physical impact. I totally agree. Now, what happens here, guys, again? These guys are unconscious all of a sudden and waking up. This is Final Fantasy VII Remake is not the first time we go inside the Lifestream and we have white or black flashes. Hey, Xillat. Magic the Gathering always used white to counter black. Exactly. And it's, it's a common thing in Final Fantasy, and it's just in fantasy stories that just makes sense. Look. Oh my god. Isn't this just what we saw? Cloud waking up by himself. And then joined by his friends. It's the exact same thing, guys. It's just presented differently, obviously. And at this point, Cloud already understands what Holy is and what his purpose is. But in Remake, he still doesn't understand anything. So those two are extremely similar. Now, let's keep going because we have a lot to talk about in the next segment. Where did the window go? Where's the window? Guys, the window literally just disappeared.
Explaining the story is sabotage. You're exposing too much. It's a conspiracy.
The singularity disappeared, guys. I don't know you guys realize how meta this is, but the video just disappeared. Okay. Nope. Nope. Okay, let's keep going. This guy's doing some stuff, obviously. Oh, no. Don't yell at us. Where were we? We were here, okay? I want you to pay attention to the platforms they jump on as well, okay? We were kind of here, right?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, let me know if the sound of the video is too high, too low. Doesn't Nero use purple? Of course, those are big properties of black Lifestream kind of thing, right? The darkness, it's just the void and the darkness. It's negative Lifestream. It is not something that would be... It is the planet, but the planet is also susceptible to being corrupted. This is the nuance. It is the planet, but the planet is not necessarily pure all the time because Genova can infiltrate it.
It's an infection, you know. I mean,
correct.
In a lot of infections, and in fact, AIDS, you know, autoimmune deficiency. I mean, your own cells can be deadly to you. I mean, that's what cancer is. Your own cells turn on themselves and become deadly to the host. It's in medicine as well.
Just because it comes from within does not necessarily mean it always has good intentions. He's getting a glitch. I don't know how much we analyze this stuff. We don't pay attention to this while playing it. Cloud literally has a glitch once again. You see? The screen is shaking.
Mm-hmm.
There is some sort of connection. Now this guy is just going to grab the void and throw it at Cloud. Literally. That's what's about to happen. I don't know how you come to any conclusion that this is anything other than Genova's influence. Come on.
I just want to put it out there that you will see that's actually a gravity spell, and you see Sephiroth in Singularity perform the exact same move when that you just saw there.
Yeah. Okay, look at the platforms, guys, okay? Zalafrax, thank you so much and great to see you here. Look at what he's jumping through.
Yeah, this is so over the top. I think that's something that you guys can't... You see this at the beginning of Rebirth with Zack, how he was just able to just grab a big-ass cement pole and hurled it and down the helicopter. Then you guys look at that and go, wait a minute. I know this is Final Fantasy, so fantasy, obviously, but there are limits to this, right?
Yeah, I agree.
It's intentional, and this is where you really have to start thinking that maybe you shouldn't take things so literal.
Absolutely. Now, question. When do we get the party jump in between platforms to get to something that suppresses Holy? And we will look at it. Spoiler alert, we just saw it. Okay, did you see how he jumped from one platform to the other. Okay? Look at the squares as well, okay? Look at the cubes behind them. Right? There are floating cubes. Where are they? They are here, okay? You can see them in the background. Now, what I want to show you is the following. This is in Remake, okay? What if we go back again to our good old Remake or OG ending? Where were we? So, Bunke and I, like, we kind of had this theory before where one of the hypotheses is that everything in Remake is taking place here. And I, personally, guys, if you want my honest opinion, I still consider that as a possibility. Because this almost solves every tension point about the Remake conversation. But we'll get to that maybe one day, because it's a very complicated topic. Is this not what we just saw? Is this not what we just saw again? And we will see it again in Rebirth.
I just want to put this out because I just thought of it. But think about this, folks. What if that fight against Genova Harbinger, or I said Genova Harbinger, but that's fine, I can call it that. But the Whisper Harbinger.
Yeah.
What if that fight against Whisper Harbinger is a reimagined fight of Genova's synthesis from OG?
I think it's a disguised way of doing it.
Yeah, it's a disguised way. There are a little like the platforms there.
Yeah.
You see the suppression of holy. You see, so there are little hints there. There you go, the squares. You see
exactly.
It. So imagine that. Again, you saw Cloud floating in the air in the OG clip that C just showed you just a couple of minutes ago. You saw Cloud floating in the air in Remake. Think about it for a second.
I think
and remember, Genova is all about showing illusions to people. And so this will fit right into your point, Steve. This will fit all into what you're talking about.
This is why this theory is one of my favorites, because if everything is happening while we are diving into the Northern Crater, by the way, in the second time, not the first time, so that we kind of beat Sephiroth for good, it will explain why we have to unsuppress Holy a couple of times, which we did already in Remake and we're doing in Rebirth. It would explain why these platforms, because this is literally where we end up in Remake. This is what we just saw in Remake. It's almost the same thing with the tiles and the cubes and everything. And this is very similar to what we see in Rebirth at the end in the Forgotten Capital. It would explain why Genova is suppressing Holy. It would explain why we're getting all these visual cues or similarities. Is that Genova? Not yet. But we get to Genova afterwards, right? There you go. And so on and so forth. And then afterwards, what happens is that you need to... So there is something about the structure of DOG, which has been replicated with both Remake and Rebirth, is that they... There is a great video on YouTube, by the way, called the 3-disc theory or something like that. Three discs in disguise, right? Which kind of one of the assumptions is that the structure of the OG is replicated as a whole within Remake. Now, I think the person making those videos did not analyze Rebirth with the same perspective. But I think the structure of the OG, if you take it from A to Z all the way towards the end, can also be replicated in Rebirth. And the most apparent part of it is when you get to the end and you see that you need to fight Genova and Sephiroth to unblock or unsuppress Holy and to go to the Edge of Creation. This kind of stuff happens twice already, once in Remake and once in Rebirth, and is guaranteed to happen in Part 3. I think it could be just a way to make sure that the scenarios that are written for each one of the 3 games are easy to make, because if you follow the same logic, then it's going to be easy to bring stuff and concepts around it so that the 3 games kind of feel very similar. But I also think that there could be some story implications in the sense that, again, I would not be surprised if all of this is happening in the Northern Crater while we are diving to try to beat Sephiroth. So what I want to focus on next is definitely the visions and the dialogue and whatnot. And I want to bring your attention to something. So the Whisper Harbinger summons 3 whispers, right? These are obviously confirmed to... I want to clear a misconception. These are not Kadaj, Laz, and Yazoo themselves. It has not been confirmed to be that way. What the developers confirmed is that their fighting styles are influenced by Kadaj Lozenyazu. It's almost as a tribute. I think there's a little bit more to that. There's a little bit more to that in the sense that these are almost showing Cloud and the party, but I think most importantly, Cloud, what his fate is. His fate is to become a puppet like these three. Because remember what Kadaj tells Cloud. Tells him you're just a puppet. Cloud tells him you're just a puppet or something like that. And he tells him, then Kadaj answers, well, what does it matter? Because once upon a time you also were. I don't know if it was like a Genova's son or like Sephiroth's brother, whatever. He tells him once upon a time you also were like us. And that is a kind of has a bit of a reaction from Cloud. But this is just to say that there is also a very individual process that goes on. Anyways, they fight the Whispers. So I want you to focus on the mechanics behind beating the Whispers, right? So obviously all hell is breaking loose. We are trying to get to the Whisper Harbinger. What does this remind us of? Obviously it reminds us of the climb towards the Shinra building. This is where the tiles are extremely similar to the OG. Right? Let's keep going. Let's beat one of them. Intercession, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I think this is when you start beating them, right? So, what happens here is that when you beat one of them, part of the Harbinger breaks away. In this case, I think it's... Yeah, let's wait until we beat Rubrum so that we see which part is going to disappear. Is it the left arm? Yeah, so the left arm is broken. Do you see that? The left arm is now broken. What emerges from it is purple, but also green and white. And remember how we saw that the Harbinger was almost the same imagery as what was blocking Holy in Sephiroth's scene. The Harbinger literally absorbs Holy. At any point in time, we don't know. At what point in time, we don't know. But what is emergent from this is very Holy-friendly imagery. You will see it here. So we start then getting memories. There you go. So now the memories are coming to us. They are green, purple, and white. It's everything that was inside the Harbinger coming towards us, okay? But especially green. Do you see it? Okay, so we zoom in on Barret first, then on Red 13, then on our good old friend. Who do we zoom inside the first time? Let's keep following. Who is shown to experience the memory every single time? This first time it is Cloud, right? We zoom inside of Cloud. So far, so good. So let's look at this memory at face value. This reaction is always weird to me, by the way. How he looks at Aerith and then he... I don't know what he knows. Almost as though he's like, fine, I'll play along. Or something like that. He sees like, huh. This is the worst translation ever. And my apologies if I'm being dramatic. It is not a good translation of that section, guys. And I will tell you what is a good translation of that. A glimpse of tomorrow if we fail here today. That is not how that line was said. That line is in Japanese, obviously, right? What Red 13 says is, that's the landscape we're trying to discard. If you translate it in a different way, which I've seen mods which explain kind of what the real translation, what the appropriate localized translation would be, is this is the future we're trying to avoid, or this is the landscape is kind of not the right translation, but this is the landscape we're avoiding, we're trying to discard. The word fail does a lot of heavy lifting here. As soon as you add the word fail, it brings a negative aspect to the memories that were shown. In the original Japanese script, he does not talk about failing. He's just saying this is what we're trying to avoid if we do this. Okay? That's the first aspect of it. The second aspect of it is we are getting holy friendly imagery thrown at us. We are getting flashes from holy. Right? Because this is very holy friendly. You can see it there. It's green and white. There is some purple in it. We don't know. Is that the synthesis? Is that the combination of everything? But at the very least, this is not necessarily bad. because it's coming from a wholly adjacent kind of color coding. The third thing is that what kind of context does Red 13 have here? So he looks at this scene and he's like, well, I'm running in emptiness, and I don't even know if he says he doesn't, you can't even see his cubs here. Like the fact that he has 2 cubs, which means that it's kind of a positive aspect, and we will talk about this in 1 minute. The surprise I told you guys about earlier is not something that is put forward. It looks as though he's running alone. Obviously, if you look, you know they are there. If you don't know the scene, would you actually see his cubs? If you don't know the scene the scene from the OG, would you guys know that he has cubs with him? I don't think it's that definitive. Mario, I think there is some sort of, I don't know if it's to protect her plan, but there is something going on. I agree. You can't see his cubs. You can barely see a small glimpse. I guarantee you that new players did not see them. I guarantee you that. They did not realize that he was running with 2 cubs. So Red 13 kind of getting that knowledge and understanding that this is potentially a bad ending is not as surprising and does not necessarily mean that it should be taken at face value. There are a lot of other hints, but this is just the most apparent one. Now, the biggest one is to recontextualize all of this, and it's kind of the surprise I spoke about earlier from On the Way to a Smile. So we are almost shifting everything here. We are moving away from that and going back to On the Way to a Smile, okay? This is episode Nanaki, episode Red 13, okay? So On the Way to a Smile, just kind of a summary. On the Way to a Smile is a collection of, a collection of novels that depicts what happened in Final Fantasy VII in the world after Meteor Fall, after the end of the OG, and all the way until Advent Children. So it literally covers some parts of the end of the OG and goes all the way into the beginning of Advent Children. It doesn't depict Advent Children itself, but it stops right before the movie starts. We have episode Nanaki, we have episode Barrett, we have episode Yuffie, Tifa, and Shinra, right? And we have Lifestream Black and Lifestream White, which are about Sephiroth and Aerith and whatnot. In Red 13's episode, which is episode Nanaki, he speaks, or Nojima writes about Gilligan. So what is Gilligan? Gilligan is not a person. Gilligan is the darkness inside of Red 13. So what happens is that about a year or so after what happened, in those couple of years, Red 13 goes back to Cosmo Canyon, and then he decides that he wants to travel the world once again, just like Bugenhagen told him, right? Obviously, Bugenhagen is dead by that time, so he wants to kind of honor him and go and, do his advice or whatever. And what happens is that right after he is about to leave Cosmo Canyon, he feels a darkness inside of him. Now, Red 13 is able to connect with the Lifestream in some way, right? His species is able to kind of look inside the Lifestream much more than humans. So what happens is that when he closes his eyes kind of and he focuses on that darkness inside of him, he can see a surface of darkness and he can see his loved ones inside that surface. And I think they disappear or whatever. I'm not going to go into too much detail. And he ends up calling that feeling or that darkness Gilligan. Why does he call it Gilligan? It's said that he just wants to remember it. It says that when he puts a name on something, he's able to recall it more easily. Okay? So he keeps going with that feeling, and every time it's kind of he kind of comes to the conclusion indirectly that it's probably represents some kind of fear that he has, a fear of losing people that he loves. So Gilligan is essentially the fear of loss inside of Nanaki, right? Red 13. Now, fast forward, he meets Vincent under kind of bad circumstances, but they run away from something, whatever. And then he reunites with him where? In the Forgotten City. And before, what happened is that Red 13 had already asked Vincent about Gilligan, and he was like, do you know anything about this kind of feeling? Because Vincent has been alive forever, and he's immortal, right? So he's kind of can ask him about this kind of stuff. And so Vincent, I think initially tells him, I don't know what that is, and then later tells him, Gilligan, huh? He tells him, I know something about it. Red 13 says, can you tell me more? Obviously, he insists. So Vincent tells him, one day you will most certainly experience loss. You will be sad, and imagining that moment is because of fear. However, it's something you can laugh at. You'll get used to it. He says, maybe you're right. Guys, this is where it gets interesting. Gilligan came from the far distant future. The future you are unconsciously afraid of. The future. But it gets better. It's literally visions. Red 13 is surprised. Vincent tells him it knows everything about you. Imagine the moment that you will lose everything that only you have experienced, seen, and named. There is nothing else that shares all that with you. So he tells him that Gilligan, the darkness you see, is something from your future where you have something that you're the most afraid of from your future unconsciously. Thank you so much, Josh, for the super chat. Conspiracy theory that English localization is purposely inflammatory with the translation of new elements of the story. I'm going to say it's intentional. I do think that there is some sort of coordination to make sure that the story is ambiguous for Western audiences. Because I still struggle to see why French would be accurate, why German would be accurate, why Italian would be accurate. Why is it just the English localization that is not accurate, you know? So I think I agree, there is some sort of, it could be the objective to do that, right? So he tells him it knows everything about you. Now look at what Nanaki will imagine. I need to zoom in 10,100 on this. Nanaki imagined that moment Gilligan began to appear. Nanaki endured the trembling and recalled everything. Then he imagined himself running up the high grounds that overlooked Midgar. Beyond that, he saw Midgar covered by plants that he didn't even know the name of. There was the presence of humans. The reason I am so excited, I got so excited when I went back and reread On the Way to a Smile and found this quote, is that this is literally the vision that we just saw. This is literally the story telling you Red 13 was unconsciously afraid of the future that he saw in On the Way to a Smile, which is him running up high grounds that overlooked Midgar, and beyond that, seeing that Midgar is covered by plants, but humanity is still there. But still, it doesn't stop here. Hold on. There was no one he knew. Maybe if he went there and talked blah, 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 blah. And so Vincent tells him, so that's how it's been for you. Tells him, I'm all alone. And Nanaki starts trembling. I have such a long lifespan, so and the loneliness, blah, 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 blah. Don't make fun of it. So look at what Vincent tells him. Then imagine this. You won't become lonely. You may even have children. He says, me have children? I just can't imagine that. I can only imagine the Nibel bears. The reason the Nibel bears are mentioned here is because Red 13 was taking care of 2 Nibel bears in the 2 years within On the Way to a Smile. Me have children, blah, blah, blah. Then how about this? Every year you visit Midgar, there I will be waiting. I will be listening to your worthless stories. And so they carry on, and Vincent is like, you said it's Gilligan? And then he starts laughing. He laughs in a hysterical way, and he just leaves. Because that's what Vincent does. What did this segment establish, guys? It established that in On the Way to a Smile, Red 13, when talking to Vincent, closed his eyes and really remembered the memory that was coming to him through that darkness inside of him. And that memory was him being afraid of the unconscious future that he has not experienced yet. It's an unconscious memory, real memory from the future. He just has not experienced it yet. And he thought he was running alone towards Midgar and that he did not have anyone with him. But Vincent told him, imagine that instead of that, you have cubs with you, or you have children. And if this does not look like what we just spoke about, this is literally an instance that we can interpret as this scene is essentially the biggest fear, unconscious fear of Red 13. Can we switch from fate to fear? As soon as we switch from fate to fear, I feel like this becomes a completely different conversation. Because what we will see later with Cloud, with Tifa, those are very consistent with unconscious fears that they might have. Is it a future they're trying to avoid? Or is it just the darkness inside of them telling them that this is bad, you should be afraid of this? It's just they don't have enough context. Because as we just saw, Vincent told Red 13 yes, but it doesn't guarantee that this is bad. Because we don't see the cubs here. But Vincent told him, imagine that you have kids. Would that still be a bad future? Bunke, I know you have a lot to say about this scene.
I think that, by the way, it's that it really seems like that this scene was specifically designed around that On the Way to a Smile segment. The reason why I say that is because the cubs are obscured from view. They purposely cut this so you can't see the cubs. And so now I would say that again, this is if I think you made a really great point. What fate are we trying to defy? If we change that around, what fear are we trying to defy?
Exactly.
And
is it so negative?
Right. And because again, Genova being a parasite, a memory parasite, she feeds on fear. She feeds on negative emotions of any kind. Fear, anger, hate. I'm a Star Wars fan, so this all speaks to me. The dark side of the Force. I think that it's also laid out here. You know what? If you guys remember in Remake, Barrett makes a comment after when they went back to Sector 7 after the play collapse. He made a comment to Tifa when Tifa was clutching, when her hands were shaking because she was so angry. He grabs her hand and he says, "Hold on to that anger."
Yes.
That's word for word what Sephiroth told Cloud in Chapter 2.
Yes.
So, again, just something to think about. A lot of layers to this.
It's a spiritual parasite. It wants to infest your memories, your emotions. Genova's objective is to bring despair to you. This is Genova's objective. Because when it brings despair to you, it detaches you from everything that you love and everyone that you love. Red 13, so the context around Red 13 seeing that, by the way, is that Geostigma was being kind of everywhere during On the Way to a Smile, and we know that that was a bad thing for humans. But the thing is that Red 13 did not get infected, per se, with Geostigma. However, he can see into the Lifestream. And so the fact that he can see into the Lifestream might have given him insight into his darkness as if he had Geostigma. This could be what people with Geostigma see. This could be why Cloud, when he gets Geostigma, is all kind of depressed and has despair and whatever. It's because Genova kind of nourishes that aspect of fear and of despair in you. And Psycho Unicorn, I think, phrased it very well. Maybe this means that they'll learn to face their fears. This is just one potential solution that exactly what they were looking at here is their fears. Maybe we didn't see Aerith because she fears nothing. Aerith is like, the future is a blank page. Listen, she's going to say it here. Well, she's going to say it when we see the vision that Tifa has. She's like, the future is a blank page. Maybe Aerith is immune to this because she essentially cannot be manipulated by Genova because she does not fear anything. She's a Cetra and she's just in it for the ride. She just wants to travel the world, for God's sake. However, let's do one exercise, okay? Let's keep going with this logic. Aerith is bringing hope by unlocking dreams such as Zack live in. We will talk about that. I don't know if we'll talk about it here, but Square doing anything to make one cohesive experience with Remake Trilogy. Will we ever see Genesis, though? I don't know if we'll see him in Part 3. We might see him in different format, but let's do an exercise, okay? Just a thought experiment. This is not a theory. Not saying that this is exactly what's happening. We're just, in it for the ride. Let's imagine that every moment or memory we see afterwards is a fear of that character, okay? Let's apply the same logic. This scene still makes me laugh. I don't know why he reacts that way. Whatever. So the Harbinger has been... Yeah.
I was just going to mention, by the way, the Temple of the Ancients, if you really think about it, in the OG, that was the black materia, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't it make sense the trials they went through all focus on negative, the focus of their negative feelings? When you look at Barrett and you look at Tifa, they showed them at the height of their negative emotions.
Yes. It's anger.
Because they're literally inside the black materia, if you really think about it.
And Aerith says it. She says the temple is angry. The Lifestream is angry, sorry. She says the Lifestream is angry. Why is the Lifestream angry? Because humans keep wasting spiritual energy. Humans are not stopping. Shinra is essentially why the Lifestream is angry. Soldier is why the Lifestream is angry. The Mako reactors, all the hate, all the wars that happened. And more importantly, Genova is why the Lifestream is angry. So this is why Sephiroth's goal of saving the planet sometimes looks righteous, because he saw what the planet wants to do and he aligned himself with it. But with a twist, he wants to destroy everything. He's like, humanity needs a day of reckoning. And he says that in Rebirth. Humanity needs to be punished because he thinks that Genova is the righteous heir to whatever, his whole monologue. It's not relevant here. But the objective he has aligns almost perfectly with the planet. The only difference is that his motivation towards the end becomes different because he wants to become the planet. He wants to absorb the Lifestream and everything. He wants to become the planet himself. He wants to become a god. And that's where the planet is kind of, well, the lesser of two evils, humanity living, or Sephiroth, or us being absorbed into Sephiroth. Yeah, let's just spare humanity, especially that Cloud and his friends showed some remorse around what they did, and they're trying to save the planet, so it's fine. You guys get to live. However, you get Geostigma, because we need you to remember every day for the rest of your life when the Lifestream erupted on the surface, because that is a reminder for you to not do this again, to not suck the spiritual energy once again. I want to focus on the other memories. So again, let's imagine that these are fears, okay? So we detached the first limb, so the left arm. The second arm is coming off, okay? Something weird is going to happen afterwards. The second arm is coming off when we beat Whisper Viridi, right? Memories are coming once again. Again, green, white imagery, whatever. Okay, let's keep going. All of a sudden becomes yellow, obviously, because we staggered the yellow one. Keep going. Okay, now we essentially destroyed the Harbinger. We destroyed almost everything, right? Because left arm, right arm, and then the top, the chest. But look at what's going to happen. Something very, very strange. We're getting memories from the Harbinger. Who are we zooming in this time? Zooming on. On Tifa, right? Let's imagine that this is Tifa's fear. Does this make sense or not? What does Tifa fear the most when we look at Traces of Two Pasts, or when we look at even within Remake, when she has those monologues about the mission of Avalanche, when we look at Dear Destiny, and even when we look at On the Way to a Smile, Tifa's biggest challenge in her mind, biggest struggle, is the guilt of innocent lives being lost to her actions and to the actions of Avalanche. And I think halfway through we see Tifa realize that, okay, this is not the way, and we don't want humanity, we don't want innocent lives to be dead, but the true evil is Sephiroth, right? So this is her whole arc. In On the Way to a Smile, she never gets over that guilt. This is why On the Way to a Smile and Advent Children are about humans living with the guilt. Just like humanity has the guilt. Guys, Rufus has a redemption arc in On the Way to a Smile. Rufus, there is a guy who tells him, I have a way of making soldiers that are better than Sephiroth. I just need you to find me Jenova. The following day, Rufus has that guy killed. He's like, we will not do the same mistakes as we did before. Rufus has a redemption arc. How is this not a good ending? How is this not humanity having learned what happened? So Jenova, the purple shine goes inside each of us to corrupt it, and the white shine stays as a halo on top to protect us. I believe, Mario, that could be a great way of looking at it. I love that. So Jenova wants to keep those fear and negative emotions as she harvests it and gets stronger. Exactly. But Sephiroth wants the party to unlock future fearful memories so the story can occur. It's essentially things that will happen. They are just being confronted with them. So it's not a way of Sephiroth trying to break free from Jenova. I think he is, just because he thinks he is righteous in his fight, but it does not necessarily mean that his goal is any better. So what Tifa says is, this can't be our future. Again, more accurate translation is, it's not very far. She says, is this the future of the planet? She's like wondering. This is a more accurate translation. Listen to what Aerith will say here. I believe that this is the reason why Aerith is not prone to any kind of fear. We don't see any of Aerith's fears here. Maybe we see the Zack scene, but we don't see any of her fears within this segment. She says the future is always a blank page. It's because Aerith already has this knowledge. She's already in tune with the planet. Red 13 is not in tune with the planet as much as Aerith is, by the way. Just kind of anticipating that point.
If I can say something about that, the future's a blank page. So the game stops just short of predestination. Because one would think that if you can see the future, that means that things are predestined to happen a certain way, which, I mean, they touch on this, right? The fate, that's what the real definition of fate. But it's saying, but, you know, in Ever Crisis, I really found that episode, the 2.5-year update, very, very enlightening, because they present futures as possibilities. In other words, yes, this could be what happened based on what has happened to this point, but it's not guaranteed. We can change it. I mean, that's why you hear Eric saying, we're going to find a possibility where we win against Sephiroth.
Exactly. Predestination is and it's something, when you introduce time travel, one of the only ways where time travel can work is with predestination. Because you don't get into a bootstrap paradox, right? Not to say that bootstrap paradox does not have solutions, but one of the solutions is a multiverse. But given that Biggs and Zack remember the same cloud, it's not really remember a different cloud. Sorry, it's not really going towards a multiverse. If it was a multiverse, Zack and Biggs would not be in the same world. Essentially, if it's a multiverse, Zack and Biggs should not be in the same world. The presence of Zack and Biggs in the same world kind of, makes that point that it's probably not the same mechanics.
Right, and Biggs actually remembering all of the things that happened in Remake. If this was truly a multiverse, then this Biggs would have a completely different accounting of what happened in Midgar, but he doesn't. He recalls Remake, so that makes the idea of it being a multiverse even more remote.
Absolutely. Now, a big question here. We already beat the Harbinger, didn't we? Well, we did not, because this dude is reforming. This is why the party is like, well, can't we, are they like invincible or whatever? And that's where Cloud suggests we split up, take them down at the same time. So what did we actually achieve in this first segment? Did we just free those memories? It seems like we just freed those memories. It's not necessarily because the Harbinger was suppressing those memories, just like it's suppressing Holy, and we will see the moment we free Holy. It happens in front of us. But here, it does seem as though those memories were freed and the Harbinger was able to reform again. So is it taking different memories? We will see. At this point, the process will become much more individual and much more about Cloud. Big boys all mine, blah, blah, blah. This is obviously very Sephiroth / Cloud friendly imagery. It's supposed to replicate that. So, the objective now is that we take them down at the same time. But the process is going to be the same. You got to take each one down, and then that's when Red 13 and Barret are attacking the Harbinger at the same time, right? Technically, they're not really taking them down at the same time. It's just they're attacking the Harbinger directly at the same time as they take down one of the three. So that the limb that we kind of break is broken forever. I guess this is the mechanics behind it. So, we beat the first one. Memories will come out again. Still the same a glitch. Literally a glitch like those that Cloud gets. So far, we have zoomed on Cloud, and we are zooming in on Aerith. We zoomed in on Tifa. These are the only two. Who did we zoom in on? You guys know. I don't need to tell you, right? Says gotcha. Look at the halos. Yes. Look, this is Holy, guys. This is literally Holy being freed. This is not bad. This is the Harbinger suppressing Holy, and we are unblocking it. We just don't know what we were doing. Who are we going to zoom in on? Our good old friend Cloud. Why is it disguised this way? This is something that you really can't realize when you're playing the game the first time. There's absolutely no chance you realize this. Landy, my friend. Thank you. We're trying. This chapter is so complex. We zoom in on...
I just wanted to say that, if you really think about it, this mirrors the end of OG, as you just been saying. The OG fight at the end. And now at the second phase of it, it mirrors Advent Children because we're facing Bahamut, and then we get the Blackwing Sephiroth afterwards.
Exactly.
So I mean, there's a lot that the game is throwing at you. The game is really going 150 miles an hour at you with all of the imagery that they're presenting.
And there's no chance you catch all of this in the first playthrough. There's absolutely no chance because you're busy fighting these guys, which are hard enough on your first playthrough. So we zoom in on Cloud. Remember, what did we say? We talked about fears. Right? So what are we going to... Are these really memories? Are these really events that are a bad ending? Cloud fight... By the way, this is the Edge of Creation, just so that you guys know. And so far, we haven't seen a single thing from Advent Children, by the way. We have seen sequences that were taken from the Advent Children intro. But those scenes were about DOG. We haven't seen a single event from Advent Children. If someone doesn't know Advent Children, they don't understand they wouldn't know that Advent Children even exists from this. Okay? So we're going to zoom in on Cloud. I want to pause just right before the Edge of Creation so that you guys know that we are talking about the Edge of Creation when that happens. Okay? Where is it? There you go. Do you see the black? I mean, it was there. If you go to Advent Children, you can see it. But they are on the same black kind of platform or whatever. This is literally the ending of the OG. Okay? This is just supposed to represent his fight with him. Look at Cloud's. Look at Cloud's state. He's already starting to lose it. Something's happening to him. All right? So we zoomed in on Cloud, Tifa, Cloud. Okay? Let's keep using the same logic of fears. The first limb is gone. Amazing. Good. Let's be the second one. Second set of memories. We zoom in on Cloud again. Whose biggest fear is this? This is literally the biggest unconscious fear of Cloud from the future. It's the one thing he struggles with the most, to accept her death, or to accept the fact that he was not able to save her, more importantly. Okay? I want you to remember this motion. Look at him holding his head here. Because it's, spoiler alert, it's going to be repeated the exact same way. You see? He's holding his head. And it's like saying, no, this, I don't know, something's going on. This can't be real, whatever. Second limb is gone. Okay. Let's look at the third one. Are we getting anything about the future of the planet once again? Absolutely not. We're getting unconscious future fears once again. The Harbinger is almost a dream mechanism to show you the things you fear the most and tell you that this is something you need to accept. And us freeing these memories does not mean that we are avoiding them. I think it just means that we unblocked that future from being suppressed by Genova. Look at his motion. Look at his motion. The exact same motion. This is one of... I'm sorry, I'm going to have to show it through my video because I kind of had it one next to the other. Because this was the moment I saw this, and Bunke, we spoke about it a lot, but the moment I saw this, I was like, what in the world is going on? Why are these two the exact same thing? Right? Where is it? We got that one, and then we got... Where did it happen?
You're getting close.
I don't remember exactly where it happened. Oh, no, it must be before this, right? Okay. I wish I could have kept chapters here. I removed them. No, it was before. Or is it here? Oh, it must be here. Is it? Oh, there you go. Look at this. These are the memories we've been seeing, right? This is the first memory and this is the second memory. Zoom in on Cloud on both. One is him laying her down. One is the white materia, holy whatever. Please tell me why this scene is repeated. Do you guys think this is a mistake? I don't think this is a mistake. Because a scene this important would not be a mistake. I don't think they would treat a scene this important lightly. Like these are literally the money scenes of FF7 Remake. These are the most important things they had. Yet he's reacting the exact same way. Something's not right.
There's some. I mean, Manjuro, you're right. It calls back to Carl Jung, and this is when I want to impress upon everyone that's watching this is that not to take it so literal. Yeah. I spent 2 years doing this, trying to put a round peg into a square peg hole. It doesn't work if you try to take it literally. But when you take it figuratively, symbolically, then it all makes sense about what it is. This is introspective, not cosmological. This is all about, this really is about Cloud. And this is about his ability to deal. And really, if you really want to break down fate, if you really want to break it down, yes, the fate of becoming Genova's puppet. That's why the 3 whispers are there. That's why, this is what it's all about. And that's why that ties the vision that we saw at the VR with what Sephiroth said at the edge of creation that we're about to see, etc. That's how it all ties together.
And just to clarify, we're not, I'm personally, I don't think it's in his head. This does not mean that it's in his head. It's all in his head. Because if we were to split this into 2, the first part would be future of the planet, possibly. Red 13's fear Tifa's fear, or just the fear of everyone involved that meteor comes crashing towards the planet. The second part is clearly about Cloud's fears. Like, none of these memories, and no one comments on them. Did any of this happen to did the party even see these memories? I don't even know. Like, it's implied that they see something, but what I'm asking is if they saw the exact same thing. Something weird's happening. It's possible that this is where memories of the future were lost. It doesn't mean that they don't exist anymore and we avoided them. It means that maybe this is where Aerith lost her memories. It's very possible. We don't know exactly the moment where she lost her memories. Right, so we beat the Whisper Harbinger. This is the big moment once again. So we said before that it was very similar to Sephiroth suppressing Holy in the OG, right? And it's in the cage inside of its chest. Look who we are zooming in on again. That is Holy glowing, right? Green. Now we've killed almost every purple kind of connection. Look at this shot. This guy is seeing something. This is almost a vision he gets. And we're transitioning once again somewhere else. So when I was saying that everything we've been doing is to unsuppress Holy, this is what I meant. We are literally standing on something that looks like Holy. Why do we say Holy? Because water in the Lifestream is associated with Holy and white magic and the white materia. Wind as well when it's in this kind of setting. But more importantly, if we go back to the OG once again, let's see what happens once Meteor is about to hit the planet, right? We'll see it here.
7 seconds from the end, unless the unless the path of space-time
changes.
This is, and you know, we all know that space and time is reference to the Lifestream.
Yeah. So look at this. Meteor is about to destroy Midgar. This is the ending of the OG. This is why, again, the bad ending angle is that what we got was already saving the planet. What we were really about to get is Meteor destroying the planet. The humanity makes it in the very last possible moment. The white light, and then you have the water, the wind, whatever. This is why I'm saying that what seemed to have happened when we defeated the Harbinger is that we did the same process here. This is what was supposed to save the planet. But you will see that Holy here seems to just make... It's just too late or makes Meteor stronger. I know that there are kind of questions about the translation. But anyways, it didn't work. Holy, at this point, it was too late for it to work. Right? And this is why the Lifestream erupting is necessary. Again, bad ending. I am curious to know how the Lifestream not erupting could lead to a good ending. Because it's necessary here. Then how do we make sure this doesn't happen? It's a very difficult question to answer. And this is why I believe we are on Holy here. We have unsuppressed Holy. What was happening up to that point? This is once again where, if the theory is that we are right, remake takes place in the portion where we are inside the North Cave, I can get behind that because of this. Because everything we've been doing seems to serve the purpose of unblocking Holy. Not once, but 2 different times. We've already done it in Remake, and we've already done it in Rebirth. It's very easy to miss. What did we do in Remake? We freed white magic. It's not definitely literal time travel. More to do with emotions and memories, which is the most FF7 way of doing it, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. So we're fighting Genova Lifeclinger the first time, right? I'm not even going to talk about how similar this is to the end of the OG fights. Let's look at this. There is a green-white orb inside of Genova Life. Doesn't this look like the Harbinger once again? Look at the chest. Look at the cage. Look at the green and white emerging from it. Look at what's gonna appear all of a sudden. Green and white. White whispers! We have once again unsuppressed Holy. This is why we keep fighting Genova. It's to remove her influence or stop her from suppressing Holy. When the white whispers are emerging, what happens is that they're like, You guys don't belong here. You guys have been... Let us take care of you. Let us take you to where you really should be. And that's where they heal us, and they take Cloud somewhere else. Dream imagery. We are transported. Something has happened here. We are not in the same world anymore. Maybe we went inside the live stream once again. And that's where we go into Zack, blah, blah, blah. We will analyze this one day, obviously. I don't want to make it too long. It's the same process. This is why the story follows the same logic in the OG, in Remake, and in Rebirth. It all ends with unsuppressing Holy, and then go in and fight in Sephiroth at the Edge of Creation. And it will... we know it's going to end that way in Part 3, right?
And this is where I will probably push back about the idea that this is all taking place in the physical world, because we're seeing people being transported from place to place to place to place. I mean, at some point you're going like, okay, this is obviously not happening in the physical world. It doesn't mean that it's not real. It's real. It's happening within the live stream. And something I want to beat the drum about is that, even though it's not happening in the physical world, these have physical world consequences, because again, if Cloud loses, the planet's done for. Everything's going to die. I mean, etc. Put it very plainly in the Temple of the Ancients. If meteor hits the planet, it's done. Yes. So I think that, again, keeping that in mind, that the stakes are still very high, even though it may not be all happening in the physical world. I think that that's something just there to keep in mind.
Absolutely. And, I'm curious to know about, from the chat, I don't know if you guys can let me know, but I'm really curious to know, what really happened to the party? Did the party while leaving Midgar, did they experience all of this and then come back to the edge of the expressway? I don't know what happened. It's kind of strange because listen, we haven't reached that point yet, but I will just jump to it for the sake of the argument here. Technically, what happens is that we fight Sephiroth, who now controls the Whispers. Look at the party standing here. Cloud is separated. Cloud is going to go inside the tunnel that visibly forms, whereas the party is here, right? So they see a big flash of light. So did the party just go back to the edge of Midgar from here? What really happened? I think there's something that we don't know. I think that, again, this could be the party that ends up in Terrier. And the party that left, that went into Beagle, didn't experience any of this in the same way. In my opinion, the party left on the highway is the one that is unconscious in Terrier. Left on the highway, do you mean this one? Let's Mosey? I can agree. Yeah, because I think it makes sense. The camera angle is slightly different too. Can you let me know which one you're talking about? If you were talking about... Cloud himself is alone, sent somewhere new. Yes, absolutely. So Cloud is taken somewhere else, and the rest of the party... What is for certain is that he's separated from the party. Given that he's separated from the party in Terrier, I think it would make sense that this is the moment it breaks again. But we saw before that it could have broken the moment where the tornadoes appeared or the moment where they walked into the Singularity. We don't know. But I think, again, it makes it, again, likely that it could be happening here. I think, Let's Mosey, that's a very good point.
So, Steve, I also want to point out that, after this, you would think the logic will follow that everything will go back. They will go back to the expressway. That's not where they went at the end of the story. And I put it up on X, but they go literally to Zack's grave. They went to Zack, where Zack's last stand to go. If you go and take a look at when they were talking at the very end,
yeah,
they are literally at the place where Zack died.
They are literally at Zack's last stand.
Right. So, and again, we look at the imagery. It's really very personal. It's Zack, it's Aerith, and it's Cloud. All this talk about defying fate and etc. You would think they would be more cosmological in nature, but really, it's very, very personal to Cloud, because again, look where they are. They are literally right there, and the fact that that you see two clouds there, and they're passing in between each other. Obviously, this is not meant to be taken literally.
Absolutely, that's exactly it.
Right, and here we go. There we go again. I mean, you look at the shot there, and they're passing through them. It's obvious that to me, after looking at it, after considering Carl Jung, that Aerith here starts to see where the fracture started.
What really
Where
happened?
did where yeah, and now she understands, and then she makes an allusion to it. Remember, they went and they corrected this.
Yes, I miss it. The Steel Sky. I think that this is. I'm not sure. This might be the last translation, right? This is the updated one. But anyways, in French she says, "Cruel sky, always taken." Yeah, just cruel sky, and it's explained in Ultimania, I believe, that the sky is kind of symbolizes a bit of fear for Aerith because it takes precious people to her.
Away that she loves. Yeah,
Yeah.
takes away and here it's actually a very poignant point, because we might be seeing Aerith might actually be seeing how Zack died. She now in Crisis Core, you get the sense, it shows you that Aerith is loosely aware that Zack died, but she did not know exactly how. But if she is going through through the memories of Cloud's memories of what actually happened, she probably, would be stunned to see what happened.
Yeah.
Yeah. It just makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and Let's brings up a great point here, saying Rebirth Party of Tifa, Barrett, Aerith, Red, Yuffie are all shifted personalities from the remake selves too. Yeah, there are small differences, I agree, but it goes line in line or hand in hand with what she said, as in we will be changing ourselves. Also, another way to look at the Red 13 quote or the Red 13 vision, guys, is that if this version of the party... So, the hypothesis is that this could be the party that went into Terrier, whereas the party in Beagle didn't experience the same things. So if that is the case, then this means that Red 13 here is talking about the fate that the Terrier party defeated. Does that make sense? It makes sense for the party in Terrier to have beaten fate if they did. Again, just go into possible solutions. Not saying this is what's happening. But if that's the case, and this is the party that ended up in Terrier, then it means that they did defy fate, and they are not heading towards this future, because they are actually in another world, a metaphysical world. They died. Like, these spirits of the party died. The other spirits in Beagle are still there, but this version of them has died. So it's definitely, yeah, it's kind of poetic. In order to have healing, they have to confront their fearful future. Thank you so much. That's a great way of phrasing it. And I asked Black, I'm confused by Barrett and Gongaga telling Red that he thought they beat the Whispers while running to the reactor after talking to Cisne. The other thing, I agree, the other thing that... So the only reason why I wouldn't go as far as saying this didn't happen to any of the party is the fact that we have here Barrett telling Cloud, I thought you beat him. I still haven't found a way to discard that scene just because, guys, they know what they're doing. Do you think this line of dialogue about Barrett here telling Cloud, I thought you beat him?
By the way, did you notice that it's not just the feather disappearing? It's the feather turns into a purple dust.
Yeah.
And and really, if I can just tell everyone my theory about Cloud being in a live stream as this is happening. There's a battle being waged, and there are three pieces to the puzzle. There's Cloud / Aerith over Cloud's mind, his will. You have Genova's will, and you have Sephiroth's will. And so you really have there's an old saying, there's a battle over your mind. And this is what I think is going on. This is a battle over Cloud's mind, dramatized in a very dramatic fashion. In fact, when I look at the characters here, you talking about characters, we know that this is not some science project. You can't duplicate people, right? Yeah. It makes me wonder whether or not, because I am of the understanding that perhaps Cloud, Tifa, and Aerith, and the OG, they're all in the live stream at the same time. So what about the others? They could be in a live stream, as in the end, at the end of OG, like we're talking about, or the fact that the live stream has memories of them. Just like in a dream, you will encounter people in the dream that will be a facsimile of their real selves, because they're your memories of them. So they will act like their real selves, and they can interact and they can react to what they see in the dream, even though it's not real.
Jungian psychology once again.
Yeah. So I mean, it really can go either way. I mean, again, we're not so dogmatic to think that that it has to be one way. I mean, there are a lot of ways they could really conclude this story, but it doesn't. But what we're trying to really point out is it doesn't have to be a sequel per se.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, the story doesn't have to lead. This does not have to literally be the. And by the way, did we see a single Advent Children memory, guys? We haven't seen a single Advent Children memory. These are all ending of the OG memories. Advent Children hasn't even been mentioned at all at any point here. Those are scenes that were rendered in Advent Children because, come on, they were not going to show the Red 13 version from the OG in remake. That would not, visually it wouldn't work. And I believe that re-rendering it all from scratch, given that they will be anyways doing it in part 2 and part 3, didn't make sense, so they just went ahead with this. And I think that makes total sense. But the fact that all of it starts with what is the trigger? If there is any trigger, it's this.
That's where it all began.
Why is it about Zack's fate? Who is Zack's fate important to? Why didn't we see? Okay, let me ask you a question. Why didn't we see Tifa saving her dad, for example? Why didn't we see what's his name, Brian? Why didn't we see Brian being saved from Sephiroth killing him when fate was challenged? Why didn't we see Claudia? Why didn't we see Cloud's mother? Why didn't we see Ifalna? Why didn't we see Ifalna being saved by whispers? Maybe we see it in part 3 and then I retract everything I'm saying now. The one thing that we saw is the moment where Cloud's personality broke down and he became a new person in a hollow shell of a body that became kind of fragile or susceptible to corruption or to manipulation by Genova, unfortunately. And so I think it all links. Let's Mosey says it's like the Johnnies in Rebirth. this is something that Bunke loves a lot.
We talked about that last.
We talked about it last stream.
Yeah, there's an Easter egg in there, and I wanted to point out something here. It's that here's the thing: if we're right that this actually Zack that you've been seeing in Rebirth really isn't Zack, but it's really an archetype of the hero that Cloud aspired to be that he saw in Zack. Think about what Hamaguchi said in his latest interview. It says they're saying that Zack is a worldview of how things are. Again, think about when the Mirror said about the distorted perceptions. See, if you notice that, especially with Hamaguchi in his latest, he didn't talk about Zack the person. He talked about Zack the legacy. He's also talking about how things are, how viewpoints are viewed through the lens of Zack.
Yes.
And I also wanted to point out that at the beginning of Rebirth, again, I kind of alluded to it earlier, you can't die. When you first play as Zack in Rebirth, you go in there, it's just a little bit of a recreation of The Last Stand, except that Zack is just whooping ass, right?
Yeah.
He even strikes a pose after, but when he gets to Aerith, it's a reenactment of Aerith's death with Cloud. You see the slow falling of the white material on the ground. You see him holding her. You see him crying. Because no matter how much he dreams about Zack being the hero that saves people, because that's what he thinks heroes should be able to do. Because remember, that's the child healed. Because even before he lost his mother and Zack, his fear was always not being strong enough to save the people he loved. That started when Tifa fell off the bridge. That's when it all started. Remember, Brian got mad at Zack, or mad at Cloud, and told him to stay away from her. That's where it really, really all started.
Absolutely. Let's Mosey says, this is my first time catching your stream, but I'll be tuning in from now on. Y'all get it? Thank you so much. Appreciate it. I'm glad to hear that, you're on the same wavelength. Obviously, we're just trying to figure things out. And to go back to what you're saying, Bunke, I want to show the connection we spoke about a lot, which is this one. Look at this. First of all, this scene is literally replicated in Remake. This is when he says, was that all of them? Right? Except there the sun is shining. It's the opposite. It's an imagined scenario of what really happened, of an imagined scenario of the version that really happened. 3 troopers and...
This is OG.
helicopters
This is
around.
OG because if you really think about it, this is OG being recreated right here. Because in the
Correct.
OG, this is truncated, right? This is not. It doesn't go into that. You don't fight them and so on, all that. But this is exactly the recreation of OG, and yeah, this is where.
This is where the contrast is going to start, because look at this.
Right.
The helicopter is in flames. Zack, it can barely move. Look at how he's swinging his sword. Now look at Rebirth Chapter 1. The exact same scene will be recreated, but now this guy can literally pull a light pole or whatever and throw it at to the sky. Come on. This is it's the same fight.
Die here.
You can't die.
Here. You can't die here. And by the way, look at Aerith. Look at her how she's lying. That's exactly how she lies at Rebirth when it comes to her body. She's laying on her side. None of this is it's random. This is all very intentionally drawn.
It's a dream.
Right. Nojima was very specific about the imagery he's conveying here. And here we go. Zack going over the top. Zack being the hero. Just disposing everybody without breaking a sweat.
It's dramatic. It's dramatically over exaggerated. Especially when he's gonna hit the helicopter. Look at it.
And here we go again. Here we go. Superman. The only thing that's missing is the cape. Here we go. Yeah. Is that really realistic? I understand this is Final Fantasy, right? It's a video game. But come on, dog. Come on. That's not realistic. You know what? If you really believe that, I got some Ocean View property in Utah I want to sell you. That is not. I'm sorry. That's too much.
Listen.
I'm sorry. And then he strikes a pose right here.
It strikes a pose. If this was like, I don't know, Endgame Sephiroth or whatever, Endgame Cloud, you're like, okay, this is a guy who was just being shot by 1,500 troopers who barely made it alive because a whisper supposedly saved him. And we can talk about that one day because the whole scene is kind of hazy. Do you think he's going to be as strong as this? He barely made it alive. Why is he barely moving here? If supposedly it's a different conclusion, how did he get so strong as to be able to pull this off? While he dragged a Cloud who is half asleep all the way to Midgar. It is a dream. It's supposed to represent an idea of Zack returning. Almost a question of what would Zack have done if he went back to Midgar. Now, jury's still out on whether this is Cloud's dream, this is Aerith's dream. I think they're connected. I think it's a dream being sent to Cloud's unconscious to remind him this guy died. Because it's going to happen in the Pug world. It's going to happen in the Corgi world, and it's going to happen in the I'm forgetting all of them. Anyways, all the worlds you can see that that Zack is confronted by the troopers and has the same end. It's almost the harbinger of fate of messages. Remember, messenger of the unconscious, giving you messages and telling you this is what really happened.
This is the distorted perceptions. This is Cloud's distorted perception of Zack, the hero that can't fail, that's always going to save people, which in fact, that's the exact opposite happened. He wasn't able to save himself. And really, if you think about it, he wasn't able to save Cloud either. They could have killed Cloud.
Exactly.
But they let him go. I mean, and remember, Biggs talks about that. Why did fate choose me? Remember when he goes back and said that? Why did fate choose me to survive? If you really think about almost all the lines there in Rebirth during the Zack sequences are all just inner monologue of Cloud's deepest fears, and his deepest dreams, and his deepest aspirations.
Absolutely. Now, here's another question. Obviously, this is reminiscent of both Cloud holding Tifa in the reactor and holding Aerith at the end of Rebirth. This sequence almost acts as a summary of the story. Zack comes into Midgar. He goes to Sector 5. He goes outside. You find the motorball destroyed. And he goes to try to save Aerith, but it's too late. Almost too late. It's literally a summary of the story. Now, there's a very interesting comment. Could all this be how Cloud sees Zack? Yeah, I think this is what Bunke was saying, or what it could be capable of. Exactly. If you look at Cloud at Zack in Cloud's subconscious or unconscious, you could think of it that way. Now, my biggest question is the following. Was Red 13 maybe talking about this memory when they were fighting the Harbinger? Imagine if Red 13 saw this memory instead of the other one, whereas Cloud saw the 500-year flash forward. Again, there are multiple angles, and this would be contradictory with the fear angle we spoke about before, by the way, just so that I'm clear on this. It's not that it's consistent with it. We're just giving ideas or options, which could still mean that there is some sort of subversion. There's kind of weird stuff happening with the visions that we're showing. This is just to give ideas. It's possible that Red 13 and the rest were seeing this future, because remember, they go into Terrier World, whereas Cloud was seeing what he will go into, which is the Beagle world, the future of saving humanity, meteor, whatever, all this kind of stuff, right?
But by the way, it all fits because none of this is real. But
Yeah.
Genova is all about showing illusions. I mean, that's the one thing that you should get out of the first soldier. She's capable of showing elaborate illusions. So she could have shown them illusions from the Terrier world, which is not real, but to them it's real.
Exactly.
And it's so I mean, and think about it. I mean, it all makes sense. I mean, shoot. I mean, in chapter 6, which is the last chapter that we have of Ever Crisis. I mean, what did you see at the end? You see Sephiroth and Angel fighting another Genova purple-like beast, great big monster.
Yes.
And then there's, and here we go again. Sephiroth is faced with the choice, a very hard choice, or the illusion of choice, etc. I mean, it's all really coming together. It's all very, very, very.
Yeah, absolutely.
It comes together quite well.
And again, options, guys, right? Nothing definitive. But to go back to the Singularity, what happens here? So what is going to trigger all of this? This is, again, why the emphasis on Cloud is of such importance. What is going to trigger everything that comes afterwards? He asked her, where are we?
I'm waiting, Cloud.
It's literally him here in Sephiroth. Everything starts with this. I think the symbolism here is you could unsuppress Holy, but as long as this guy can still hear Sephiroth inside of him, then something's not right. You haven't won your battle yet. I think this is the symbolism behind it.
And Aerith is like, huh? What? I mean, what's wrong?
He thought it came from her.
Okay. You need to pull up your video, Steve, because this is okay. I was like, I'm just making sure. I'm not gonna spoil it, but this is I'm. You know what, Steve? I love you like a brother to the end of time for you finding this, because I don't believe in a million years no one else will find this. I think that this is genuinely blew my mind. What Steve is about to show you from his own video. I cannot believe this was in the game and no one else is caught to it. This is just blows my mind. I'm not going to spoil it.
Thank you for the love, my friend. And guys, say hi to Mom. She's also in the chat. Love you, Mom. Thank you for jumping in. Miss you too. It's been a while that I haven't seen her. Is that Sephiroth? Not to be too salesy once again. Let's just see what happens here. Okay. Meteor illusion or demonstration. Here, as we said before, is that Sephiroth's meteor illusion or demonstration only happens once Cloud hears his voice inside his own head. We just said it. Another great thing to point out, which likely hints that the illusions happening at the end of Remake are somewhat similar to the ones happening at the end of Rebirth, is that Cloud...
Come on, dog. Okay, come on.
The Forgotten Capital, with Sephiroth
this is what makes me believe that not only that it's not the real physical world, but I am not sure if the entire party is there. This is letting me believe it's like the VR. When you see the vision at the VR, maybe that's a deep cut reference that this is like a VR simulator. They're not really there, but you know the memories of them are programmed into the VR machine so that you can make like good replicas of them.
My biggest question, and going in the same line of what you're saying, is did the party experience this twice, or did did this party go into Terrier while this party is experiencing it for the first time? Cloud is clearly experiencing it twice, because it's the same Cloud that we played as who went into the Edge of Creation and came back, supposedly, right? To me, the pre-rendered cutscenes are showing the cyclical nature of not being able to escape the OG fate of Meteor. It's just looping. That's a great angle. I love that.
Great. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
But
But I
that's
need
still just
I think this could be Cloud seeing the future. I think that when it really happens, like when Sephiroth really appears and summons Meteor, they will once again do it. But this time it will be the real party. It will be the real Sephiroth. And it will be like, this is really happening. What you were seeing before is visions. Or this has already happened and we are just reliving it. It's one of the two, right? But it's very weird. It's just strange. Why is that? I refuse to believe that they don't have budget to re-render this. Like, it's clearly intentional. Because remember, everything is changing. Like the details are changing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, what is that? Why does he have glasses here and here not? It's kind of weird
Right.
stuff. It's intentional.
You see the lightning in the left one, but you don't see it in the right side.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh,
Now, some of
you
it-
did. You did. Yeah.
Some of it might be embellishment and, them trying to pull off a better version in Rebirth. I'm not saying no.
Right.
But the exact same shots, it's literally Sephiroth appearing. It's Sephiroth appearing twice and saying, this is what's going to happen. This is what I'm doing, or this is what I've already done. It's one of the two. My only question, which I still struggle to find an answer to, is what I said before. Did the party experience it twice? Or is this the Terrier party, whereas this is the Beagle party? If this is the Terrier party and this is the Beagle party, it's the biggest confirmation we have, possible confirmation, that Cloud was with one set first and went into another set of party members here. Because Cloud is not present in Terrier in the same way that the party is present. Cloud is not unconscious in Terrier in the area where the tornadoes were. That's where the party is.
If I can provide a little bit of an explanation. So when he walks through that barrier, we did not know that he was no longer in the same world. When he crosses the barrier there at the Forgotten Capital, because what we did not see before, Cloud deflects Sephiroth's sword, we did not see no glitch effect or anything. It was just,
absolutely.
If in fact, if you didn't see the aftermath, you would have thought that this was all happening in the same world.
Absolutely.
But it clearly wasn't. And obviously this is where the game makes it clear that that Cloud is going through multiple experiences, and they're different. One experience is the true experience. The other one is figment of his imagination, which means that you got to. So when we think about remake and rebirth, all the way up to it, maybe all of that didn't happen.
Yeah, exactly. Not in that way, at least.
Right. It was playing all the deviations because we realized that no, Wedge didn't really, all that thing, because the underground bunker with the Shinra at Sector 7, which was not part of the original game, did that really happen? Or is that Cloud superimposing what he was being experimented on, which you saw in Remake, while the Whispers threw him out of there?
Absolutely.
Superimposing events on there, just like you see in the Cherry world, events being superimposed on top of each other.
But so Let's Mosey says kind of a question that is linked to this, which is my wild theory is that all pre-rendered cutscenes are snippets into actual reality and all the in-game stuff is within Beagle or whatever. The dream worlds are mirroring what's happening on the physical plane, but the changes are affecting it in unforeseen ways. I agree on the mechanism. My question to you, Let's Mosey, is if all the worlds we have seen bar Beagle are just dream worlds affecting reality, what's the one proof we have that Beagle is not the same thing, just that it has started before Remake starts? Is there a chance that Beagle is not is there a chance? What guarantees for us that Beagle is not the same thing, but that it just happened to have started before we started the game, so we didn't get a chance to see us moving into the Beagle world? Because as soon as we open this possibility, it's an endless realm of possibilities. And you say, as in the stamp worlds are being used to influence change on the physical plane through repeated cycles of the planet like Meteor. I agree again on the logic. I think rather that it's used to impact Cloud, because I believe that the Terrier world, the more we saw the Terrier world, the more Zack's memory was coming back to Cloud. It's almost as though that unconscious dream was coming back. And the fact that he literally dreams of it in the gold saucer is just kind of the resolution of it. Is the game telling us Cloud is able to see into this world that is underneath the surface? Almost.
By the way, if one thing about this is that this all lines up, if you really think of it. If Cloud did fall into the live stream after the events of the Northern Crater, the North Cave in the OG, and he's in the live stream right now, and this is where Remake is taking place, it all makes sense because those memories would start to come back.
Yes.
Memories of Zack and etc. Because remember, in the OG, this is the first time that Cloud has seen Zack. During when Sephiroth shows him the true version of the Nibelheim incident, he sees Zack for the first time, and then so if you really think of it that way, I'm just saying that it's put out there as a possible explanation there about why all of a sudden. That's why it answers other questions too. Why does Cloud seem worse off now than he did in the same spot in the original? Well, if this is all happening in the live stream, by the time he falls to the live stream in the OG, he's at his breaking point. And what do we see? We see the tear. We see the tear in the live stream sequence. We see the tear in the Terria world.
Yeah. And, the tear is probably the biggest hint. And in the same breath, once again, let's mosey. I think you've solved it. And I think we're definitely on the same line of thinking. Anything with a stamp isn't reality. Beagle is just the closest thing to OG events and the primary vehicle to try and change physical events. It goes back to Jung, his theory of the self, ego, personal unconscious, and collective unconscious. Thank you so much. I'm not sure if you've seen the video we did on the analysis of chapter 14 of Rebirth, applying Jung's theory of the psyche to that and explaining how those are probably unconscious unconscious dreams of Cloud. The ego is the Cloud we play as. His personal consciousness is hidden from him, and his collective unconscious is linked to the other worlds, but he doesn't understand the link. I couldn't have phrased it better. I'm just going to pin this and stop this tree.
Right. By the way, in Crisis Core, remember Crisis Core was developed alongside Remake. At least there was some in Crisis Core, there is no stamp.
No stamp. Why?
So, and remember, Hamaguchi actually said in the interview that Remake is its own separate world from the rest of the Final Fantasy VII compilation. What would that mean? That's only one thing it means, that Beagle, it's no more real than the other. It just comes the closest to being the most real. But even within the Beagle world, as we just alluded to with Wedge and with obviously some other things, it's still not one-to-one. There's still deviations. And again, that's what I assume it's going to be explained in the third game.
And if there is a slip from Hamaguchi, I think that might be the one slip. Because that was in a quick fire question interview. Not that it wasn't prepared. It's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if he has ever slipped in terms of giving away something that maybe he would have wanted to keep his cards close, I think that might have been the one. Because saying that Remake is a different world does not necessarily mean that it's a multiverse. We again explained that the existence of Zack and Biggs, who remember different Clouds in the same world, kind of goes against the idea that it could be a multiverse. But it means that the type of reality we're experiencing in Remake is possibly different from that in the OG. And Let's Mosey says, we see Cloud's personal consciousness in Remake. We see his true self. Which is that's what Jung refers to. It's literally his true self talking to him. Because his true self is currently trapped and cannot resurface. It's just trying to he does not want to shock Cloud. He does not want to shock the ego. And he's saying as well, when he falls from the react, exactly. There's also never a stamp in any pre-rendered cutscenes either. I'm really curious about this. Is there any area where we would have expected, any pre-rendered cutscene where we would have expected stamp to be? I am totally with you on the idea that when the reveal happens, we are shown that stamp was never a thing, or at the very least, there was one for Junon. Thank you. Junon, the Junon slip, the Junon mistake. I don't know if you guys remember what happened in the Junon mistake. So, stamp Junon Rebirth. Well, just writing it that way is not going to work. There you go. The questions it created. Do we see? Is this image still online? I hope so. Please be online. Amazing. This was something they fixed with a patch. Oh, the parade pre-render has no stamp. Wow, I didn't realize that. Wow, I gotta go and dig now because I didn't realize that. But the in-game had Terrier. Yeah, I remember that, Beagle, and especially Beagle, well, Terrier was patched out, but Beagle was all over this area, was all over this avenue here, or like this way. Okay. At one point, at the early stages of the Rebirth release, you could find a Terrier and a Beagle stamp in the same place. I know people speculated, maybe even within this Reddit thread, that it was a sign of the worlds merging. There is no reason for them to merge. There is one reason, guys, that could explain that. What was Cloud wearing at this specific moment in time?
He was wearing his infantry outfit, yes.
Remember when Cloud said, "Long time no see, my friend," or something like that, when he was picking up his Shinra outfit? The Trooper outfit. He was picking up the Trooper outfit and he said, "Long time no see." I don't want to go and dig it up, but I'm going to go and dig it up. What is it? Rebirth Chapter 5, is it? Is that Junon? No, then that's probably 4. It's been a while. Thank you, Let's Mosey. You got your references much better than I do. Is it a coincidence that the one area where we have issues, I'm aware that in the Gold Saucer there were issues as well, but in the Gold Saucer is where we see Cloud literally peeking into other stamp worlds. You're insane with this shit, I can confirm. He says it's been a while, right? Where does he pick it up? Here? There you go. First of all, does Cloud does this version of Cloud think that he picked up, that he started as a trooper and became a soldier?
Right. That's the idea.
Right. I think that's what they're implying.
Yeah, it's a double meaning. It's really it's really like a double. It's a nice little Easter egg buried within the Easter egg.
Absolutely. And then you walk into this parade, and you got a Beagle and a Terrier. Considering that Terrier is the world where Cloud is not the soldier on the run. So essentially Terrier is the world where Cloud does not necessarily live the whole fantasy that he's living out now. I don't think that's I think at the very least, I think so. Obviously, I think at best or at worst, this was something that they patched out because they realized it was too much. They don't want to give it up or give out this kind of details. And I think at best, or the opposite kind of scenario, is that they just started with this idea and they realized they don't want to do it. So initially it was there and they realized, okay, we want to remove it. But the other idea is that they were actually planning to show us a Terrier first and then they went a different direction. Maybe the scenario had us going there as Zack. I don't know. G, he says, brings back memories. Yeah. And what are we supposed to understand from that? Okay, I feel like we haven't given this section its time, so let's wrap it up for the Singularity. One of the best cutscenes ever, by the way. I wanna enjoy this again. There's a theory that he's not actively lying, and it's not just Genova. What do you mean by that? That's Mosey. As in, he was actually remembering himself. It's possible.
Right, because part of it, he's not lying about his entire past. I mean, he did join Shinra, and and everything he did. So, I mean, it's just, but then there are key details, obviously, that he gets wrong. But yeah, he's not lying about his entire past. By the way, this is so well done. And in the storyboard, they were told specifically when they were creating this to mirror that of Advent Children. They were told specifically. So this is again going back to this is the original. When children step back simply, not the other way around. This is where it happens first, and it's and yes, and I think that again, this is not the same Sephiroth that we saw this, descending downward with the black feathers, etc. Before they crossed into it. What you're seeing there in the Singularity, that's Genova. That's Genova wearing Sephiroth's face. Because really, at the end of the day, Sephiroth is actually dead. His spirit is he has a strong will, so he doesn't diffuse with the Lifestream, and that's that's the Sephiroth we see at the edge of creation. The one that says that we're going to defy destiny together. That's the one that entreats Cloud. But yes.
By the way, Let's Mosey's bringing up a very interesting one. We're going to talk about the radio, absolutely. saying is there is a theory that Cloud is actively lying, as in he's knowingly lying. Is that what you mean? Because that is a pretty good idea. I think that the reason I'm thinking it's a good idea is because if you go back to the OG when he realizes I was trapped in an illusion or something like that,
Right.
he says something like, I made up a world or I made up a lie that I lived in. And you
Yes.
could interpret that as a conscious process. You could interpret that as a conscious process. I think there could be something to the extent where he is actively, knowingly doing this. Now, the glitches he gets about Zack, for example, could be the case of Zack is something that triggers that in him, and so he is remembering him slowly or whatever. But I like the idea. We need to investigate it a bit more. He lied so much about what he wanted to be that he eventually believes it.
And
I
here's the
think that's
thing.
possible.
He also says that he was trapped in that illusionary world.
Yes.
And I think that's very, very interesting thing to think of. It's because, remember in the Terrier world, he is, he's barely conscious. He can't move. He can't do anything. And so it's just something just to keep in mind. Because I really believe that I really believe that the whole idea of worlds is based around those two sentences he says in the OG when he recovers. I was
Exactly.
in my illusionary world. I was trapped in it. These are the stories I heard from my friend Zack. And if you really think about all the things you saw Zack doing, this all talks about Cloud's dream of what he thought, that a hero should be, the illusionary world that he made up.
I love this idea so much. I will admit that I didn't consider before that it could be. I think you phrase it very well. It's mostly saying he lied so much that he eventually believes it. It became unconscious, but it started maybe as a conscious process. Maybe he started lying when he met Tifa because he was ashamed of his state, and he started lying when he met Tifa.
In Crisis Core, he started lying. Remember, he grabbed the mask and hid his face when he first came back into Nibelheim. That really is what it all started.
Exactly. He wouldn't show up without a helmet because he was very ashamed. I think he did show up to his mom's. He did the same shit in Nibelheim. Yeah. I think that would be such an emotional way of resolving it. I love that idea. Right. So what happens is that Sephiroth appears, summons Meteor, and absorbs it. This is just Sephiroth showing his game plan. This is exactly just Sephiroth letting us know, I will summon Meteor, I will absorb it, and now he absorbed the Whispers as well, because everything that was there, he absorbed it, right? It's like we're getting to the crux of something, and Sephiroth appears and absorbs it. There is a very interesting line of dialogue, which I want to show you guys. I wouldn't say it's the opposite of his OG goal, Let's Mosey, because in the OG, he also wants to wound the planet and absorb the Lifestream. My question is, why does he not end up absorbing the Lifestream when it erupts in the OG? And I think the answer is because Cloud stops him before he is able to do so. It's because Cloud kills him. Because the Singularity, the only place where the true Sephiroth exists, I believe, is the Edge of Creation, which could be the unconscious of Cloud, which could be whatever. And that's why beating Sephiroth there was important, because if Cloud didn't beat him there, then he would have absorbed the Lifestream. This is how I interpreted it. But obviously the OG is so... There's so much missing context that it could be reinterpreted differently.
And in my viewpoint about that is that, remember that could be a Genova manipulation, because etc. told you that if Meteor hits the planet's done for. There is no planet left to absorb.
Yes.
So that could be a Genova manipulation into Sephiroth, and that will make so much sense based on what we see in the first soldier. And plus, look at the Gi. The Gi have what Sephiroth wants. They exist outside the cycle of life and death, and they found out that it's not all it cracked up to be. And it makes me wonder if the Gi are nothing more than Sephiroth from their own planet who took Genova's offer, maybe betrayed their planet, just like Hojo and those who have betrayed this planet, and realized that that eternity isn't as grand as they thought it was.
Exactly. And I think that's, there's a lot of subtext about that. To go back to Let's Mosey's point, in absorbing Meteor before impact prevents the wound from happening. I agree. But there is also the fact that, okay, Meteor is summoned, but it seems that there is still visual imagery of the Lifestream appearing. You know, all those black particles, I think it's the implication that maybe the Lifestream is turning black and he absorbs it before Meteor impacts. But there is a big question about that. I agree. It's when you phrase it that way, it's very interesting because he does absorb Meteor before anything happens. The only...
But remember, when he's absorbing here, though, I would just want to point out to Les Mosey that remember about the emotions that the approach of Meteor does to the planet, the people living on the planet, and how much negative emotions he elicits out of people. And if you really think of it from a symbolic point of view, he's absorbed. And really, this is not. I would say this is Genova, really, because you see all the purple effects. In fact, you know, when you see the purple, you see some of the spells that he casts in the Singularity. They're purple. They're purple in nature. The Masamune, the purple is imbued with purple, just like you see it in Advent Children. Right before Cloud cuts down Kadaj while they were falling, the Masamune appears in a purple hue and blocks Cloud's strike in the nick of time, which is almost a reversal. If you think about it, that's a reversal of what Cloud's dream was with Aerith, saving Aerith. It's a reversal there. So I'm thinking that again. I almost look at that scene there inside of the Singularity. That's more Genova than it is Sephiroth.
I think that makes sense. And you know, we've just a mention here for the video that I released in January, where we're having that conversation during the video. Like, so I think it's a good case of trying to give the idea a bit of time. Is it Sephiroth or Genova? Is he absorbing more Genova as in, does every meteor contain Genova? I think that there is some link between Meteor and Genova. I totally agree. I don't know what kind of link in the sense that, does it come with it, or does Genova being somewhere lead to it reuniting even meteor fragments through space? I think that's also possible.
When she arrives on a meteor, and when one question is, it says that maybe the meteor that she arrives on are remnants from the last planet she destroyed.
Exactly. It's possible, and the Gi could also be involved with that. You know, we're kind of aware of that.
It's too convenient. I would say it's not proof, but it's too convenient that the Gi want the very thing that Sephiroth wants, and they want out of it. They want to die. I mean, and so it just makes it just that much more evident that they were probably hoodwinked by Genova and ended up helping destroy their planet in their with their so-called ascension to godhood that Sephiroth is saying that we see in the original. It ultimately turns out it turns out to be nothing of the sort.
There's totally a link. What kind of link is, I think it remains to be seen. The reason I'm drawing this, guys, is to answer one of the questions by I thought that's misleading. I thought that was an arrow. Okay, now I can add it. So is to answer the question in the chat, what about the radio in Calm where the tornado is mentioned? Yes. Let me position it this way. The tornadoes happen, and then you have a Terrier version of the party, which possibly the one we play as in the Singularity? Maybe. I'm just hypotheses here. The Beagle party just walked into the portal, or maybe just past Midgar without any portal shenanigans. It's also possible, right? Now, the reason why the tornadoes are referenced in both Terrier and Beagle is because they might have happened before it branched out. This would reinforce the fact that the Beagle party also walked into the portal, right? But it's not impossible, because I believe personally that the worlds are not separate physically, because we have not seen Beagle Midgar. We haven't seen a single stamp of Beagle in Midgar, so we can't discard the idea that within this configuration of worlds we have, including Beagle, the worlds are location specific. And to give you an example of that, when Cloud saves Aerith, I would expect that the world where Aerith is alive only exists in the Forgotten Capital. The world where Zack is alive only exists at the edge of Midgar or inside Midgar.
I would agree with that. There's a barrier.
Right.
There's a boundary that you see that you see Cloud cross back into when they go back for Aerith's body. You see, and then he sees something completely different from the party. And it also shows again that the worlds were merged. He's literally existing in two worlds at once.
Exactly. He is able to exist in the prime reality, which could not even be the prime physical reality, and he is able to exist in the world where she is saved or whatever.
Right, and I think that again, this is. I also wanted to point out something though. Remember the conversation that the kid has with Tifa, the kid Cloud has in Tifa at the very end of the live stream sequence about, hopefully we'll meet again soon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
You'll meet the real Cloud soon, yeah.
Yeah, meet the real. I mean, I think that's really, really, because I really believe that my theory about all of this is that Aerith is going back through the memories of Cloud to see where the mental fracture began. That's why we see Zack, the very first vision is that, and this is about trying to help Cloud. Now there are certain things that Aerith can't help with. That's where Tifa comes in. Aerith was not there during Cloud's childhood, and that's really where a lot of this started. Where all of this really started. But that's why you see that one Terrier stamp where it's closed. It's no, because remember in OG, he when Tifa asks him, why did you join Soldier in the first place, and he says these are tender memories that no one can ever know. I think something to that effect.
And this is why so far he's been unsuccessful in returning to his true self. But to kind of reinforce your point, the biggest proof of the fact that it could be Aerith, so it could be Cloud's memories being recreated in the form of worlds, facilitated by Aerith's powers and ability to do stuff in the live stream. The biggest proof of that would be this: the fact that she gives him the white materia, sending him from one world to the other. I believe that when she gave him the white materia, she was hoping that it would bring him back to his real personality or his real memories.
And did you notice the effect though? The effect of the white materia when he gives it to her, it was able to transmute matter. It was transformed matter into straight energy, and assuming the other way around. And by the way, you see that same effect when she casts that spell on the barrier.
Yes.
In Remake. You see that same effect, that same glowy rainbow effect on there. So it's obviously that she used her white materia there as well.
It's very possible.
I mean, yeah.
Greeting sideways. Aerith in this scene is so sus. She keeps looking at that door, expecting Sephiroth to walk in at any moment. With the knowledge she has, this is why. Listen, imagine that this is Cloud's journey after he falls from the northern crater. Would this really be surprising? This is him after he gives the black materia to. And you know what? Something just came to mind. It makes sense that we go back to the present, because this would be the present, right?
Yes.
When he enters a world, he goes back into a memory. But this is possibly the one moment we got Cloud in the present.
Yes.
Why are we getting him now? Because he just remembered giving the black materia to Sephiroth. And so his mind might have gone back to, okay, then is this where it stopped? Where am I now? And that's where Aerith might have intervened.
Yeah. Because remember in the Ever Crisis the 2.5 year update, Aerith is looking for a possibility. She's looking for a future where the party wins against Sephiroth. And the key to that future is Cloud. She has to help Cloud. Because if Cloud does not recover, we're going to see what we saw at the VR. The plan is done for. He's gonna, and so that's what he said. You already seen an alternate future. We've seen the true bad ending. People think that having children's a bad ending. No, let me show you the real bad ending, where nothing's left.
Absolutely, and this idea really gives me chills. That this is the real. This is almost like a reveal. Like this is the game telling you this is what Cloud is going through at the moment. He is dreaming all of this. Not dreaming. He's experiencing this in his unconscious. Just about to be saved because of the white materia he has. But this guy appears and is like, all of these are worlds doomed to fate. This could be Cloud literally looking at his memories and dreams. This is him looking at the moment it all started to follow Sephiroth. This is him looking at his memories from The Last Stand. This is him looking at the dreams he was having.
Yes, and yes, he's looking, and these are the Terrier worlds. That's the key. They were looking at the Terrier worlds. By the way, this is the
Why?
true Sephiroth's conscious right here. This is the true Sephiroth talking, because you see him referencing what he said at the edge of creation.
Yeah.
And in Spanish, he says something that's more ambiguous. It's another example where the English translation is more ambiguous. He says that the reunion can't be stopped, but I can help you.
There
He
you
actually
go.
says that in the Spanish trend. So this Sephiroth is definitely not the same Sephiroth that's talking about the reunion, the Blackwing Sephiroth, that we seen in earlier. Prior. Yeah. So just something to be, something to be aware of.
Exactly. And it does not undermine the story if this is all memories, because it really happened in a way or the other with variations. This is stuff that would have really happened. Some of it would have been more symbolic than literal. But I do think, because this looks a lot like the edge of creation. The background looks like the edge of creation. And what do we have towards the end? This guy goes back to where he was, maybe where he truly is. And all of a sudden, he teleports again to one of the worlds.
Right. Because, there you go. I mean, now they teleport back to the world, and then now he has actually merged worlds. This is the boundary that he crosses. He does, because he merged the world where he saves Aerith with the world, with the true memory of what happened.
There you go.
There you go. He crosses the boundary.
And this
the
is
rainbow effect. Yeah.
This is the best example of subjective reality, guys. He is physically in the same spot, but he does not experience the same thing. It's like, this is pure Yogacara at work. This is pure Yogacara personal reality at work. Everyone lives in their own personal world. This is his world.
Perception. This is distorted perception at its peak, because he grabs her and says, "Wake up!" Right? If you go and look at Rebirth, when Zack sees, and when he was tending to Aerith in bed, he said the same thing to her. He says, "Hello" in there, just like what Aerith used to say to both Zack and Cloud.
Zack and Cloud, exactly. Wake up.
So, and that's why I'm saying the Terrier and the Beagle world are definitely linked, because you actually see an alternate version of very key events. Because again, go back to the beginning of Rebirth and watch, Zack get to Aerith and seeing her. Yeah. And again, the white material falls out of her hair. Her hair is undone, just like you see here.
It's almost as if this is the resolution of all the memories being pieced back through Rebirth, but this time she does wake up. Almost that's what the game is telling us. I wonder how Cloud is going to get his memories back now they've done the live stream scene, or what is going to happen when he realizes Aerith is gone. I really don't think he's aware. I wonder if that might be what breaks him. I will have to slightly disagree, Joseph. I think that what breaks Cloud ultimately is the Nibelheim flashback and realizing that Tifa doesn't essentially go along with his version anymore. She reluctantly agrees with Sephiroth. She doesn't outright say, "Sephiroth, you're right," but Sephiroth shows them part of the reality, and Tifa does not know the true reality, so she's like, yeah, this guy has got a point. And Cloud could feel that tension. I think this is where he breaks down. The live stream sequence for me has not been done yet, and obviously Hamaguchi saying we've nailed it just recently in one of his outings, I think it just makes sense, considering that it's probably going to be the big climax of part 3. We haven't seen that scene at the end of this one. People haven't played the OG or the CS are going to cry very likely. Oh, wow. Yeah. Live stream sequence is going to be very taxing emotionally.
But by the way, though, it's something that we might also see in the Nibelheim flashback. If they reproduce that at the Northern Crater, Claudia.
Yeah, okay, absolutely.
It's all about this is literally the first thing that they showed to Cloud, to the player as Cloud in Remake, and it was touched again in Rebirth. Her words, "I can't believe they did all of that not to do anything with it." When they go back to the Nibelheim flashback, they're going to touch on that, and that could also be a reason why Cloud breaks.
I totally agree.
It could be a combination of things. It could be being told he's not real, being told that he couldn't save the people he loved, and it's all right. It's all ripe and ready to burst. I mean, he's at his breaking point. That's what the tear represents.
That's exactly it. And shout out to Landy, who has one of these big ideas that he knows his mother's death, but he has not processed it. He has not grieved her yet. We got a dang arsenal of Chekhov guns coming in part 3. I totally agree. Right. The one thing about the dialogue here that I wanted to bring up, as long as we're still in the Singularity. So this happens. Fate is not to be taken lightly, Cloud. Do you notice the switch in Sephiroth's attitude? Now that he has absorbed the whispers, he's like, well, now you should not defy fate. Because this guy is the whispers now. I want to take you guys to the translation of this. Because English, once again, does not do a good job to convey what was really said. He told him, don't defy fate, Cloud. You want me to go further?
Oh, wow. I did not know that.
You haven't seen the end of it.
Oh my God.
You haven't seen the end of it.
Oh my God. Oh my God. That's absolutely crazy.
No, there's something crazier. I just hope that this person, who's that Super Brioche, is one of my favorite creators. I just hope that he has that specific scene in French. This is in French, guys. There's a good reason why I want to show you this. Oops. Oh, God. Can I just drag this here? Okay. Where is that scene? There you go. Hopefully there is translation with the subtitles. Let's see. Auto-translate. Amazing. Just so that you guys know that I'm not lying to you. Oh, he's gonna talk. So he's gonna mess it up. Do you see this? Look at the subtitles.
You have to accept your destiny. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That's absolutely killer. That's absolute killer. Because what did he say what did he tell Cloud at the edge of creation? This is how we know that this is too different. That's
Exactly.
Genova talking. That's Genova talking. Accept your fate of being my puppet. Even OG, she says that. You are nothing but a puppet. She says it again in the trial with Cloud. You are but a puppet, my puppet. He said it again during the fight at the end with Eric, the Black Wing. That's Genova again. It says, you're my puppet, my dear puppet. Here we go. But at the edge of creation, that's not the same Sephiroth.
It's probably not. This is probably much more a Genova version, as you said, trying to kind of break him.
Yes.
Now, did the cards switch over to Sephiroth's will? It all remains to be seen. But something like, you have to accept your destiny, Cloud. This is as big of a reveal as we can get around the nature of everything that we've just experienced. This is almost Sephiroth appearing. You're trying to get to the crux of something, and you keep digging and digging and digging, and then Sephiroth, or a Genova version of Sephiroth, or whatever, appears and tells you, you should accept your destiny. You cannot... Please tell me what you get from this, though. I'm sorry, I don't like to make these conversations about translation, but this has totally butchered the signification or significance or whatever, the meaning of the thing. Fate is not to be taken lightly. What does that mean? Don't defy Cloud in Japanese. I'll just kind of go back to say that this is probably the closest, but this is machine translated. I would trust the French localization much more than Google's machine translation. But let's even just go with this of don't defy fate, Cloud. What fate could we be talking about? Considering we just saw 3 tributes to the puppets of Genova from Advent Children.
Right. That's, I mean, and again though, is that this is when you see Sephiroth do his attacks here, they all have a purple hue. You also see him.
Yes.
There's also a spell called Boundless Void. That is actually a reference to one of the spells that the Whispers used.
Yes.
Earlier in the game, because so I just want to tell you. So I mean, again, like I said, we're about to get to the edge of creation after this fight, where he says, Cloud, help me defy destiny. Well, wait a minute, you just told me to accept destiny here. I'm like, so that's what I'm saying is that you're dealing with 2 different Sephiroths here.
Exactly.
And it's and again, I almost want to say that I don't want to say it's a. By the way, you see that purple hue?
Yeah.
That purple hue, you see that in Advent Children too. When he first appears in Advent Children, you see that
Yes.
same purple hue. But I just want to say that I almost feel like that there's a slight retcon or recontextualization. In the OG, it seemed like the Sephiroth is in control all the time. I think that they kind of changed that. It's really Genova calling the shots here.
It looks like it.
More than Sephiroth. It really looks like it. I'm not saying that Sephiroth doesn't play a role. He does play a role in the Edge of Creation, where we're about to go. But in this spot right here, that's clearly Genova.
Look at this.
Yes.
Now, this could be, listen, the counterpoint to that is the moment you beat this version of Sephiroth is possibly the moment, well, Black Wing for me is Genova Sephiroth.
Yeah.
Black Wing
Yeah,
is very straightforward, right?
Yeah, it's very straightforward. There's no ambiguity there. And the thing about it is, they even with the Edge of Creation, when they fought, you don't see the purple hue.
Yeah, exactly.
You don't see the whispers. You don't see any of that. And again, he doesn't. And by the way, when he speaks to the true version of Sephiroth, which you saw there in Rebirth, talking about the fate of the worlds, or there at the Edge of Creation, he doesn't taunt Cloud.
Yeah.
He doesn't threaten him, etc. He doesn't do any of that. He's more just, I don't know what's the word. He's more
He has
reserved.
more charisma.
Yeah, more charisma, more reserved, more detached.
He's detached,
No,
exactly. He's more, he's above it almost.
Right. By the way, in the Rebirth, when he says, let go of the past. Wait
Yeah.
a minute. In Remake, didn't he say hold on to that anger? And it didn't, and he repeats the same thing doing the trials. Oh yeah, he said, fill your heart, empty heart with rage.
Yeah,
See,
exactly.
so there are contradictory statements here. That's Genova's will and there's Sephiroth's will.
And Sephiroth's
And they're
will.
not totally aligned. Yeah.
Now, the counterpoint I was saying is that you could argue that this is the moment. So that Edge of Creation Sephiroth needed Cloud to do this in order
Yes.
for him to be able to take control and to call the shots. But
Right.
all of it is because there is a Genova Sephiroth inside of Cloud, which we have just beaten, but it has
Right.
been replaced by a Sephiroth, possibly.
Right, the true Sephiroth. And it's interesting though, because this is a very, very complex story, because in a way, after this is all said and done, we will have to say that we have to thank the real Sephiroth for helping expose the illusion, because the bigger world is an illusion. Remember when Sephiroth first, when he appears, when he descends, he was not controlled the whispers. The whispers formed a dome around them, preventing them from going anywhere. Then he slices his sword with it, and he tells Cloud, come quickly. So they go in there, then they fight Genova. They fight all the different forms of Genova. They fought the Harbinger. Then they fight the winged Sephiroth version of Genova, and etc. Then now he meets him at the Edge of Creation. Now this is the true consciousness of Sephiroth in my view.
Now, let me take it a step further. First of all, Josephine, thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that you're loving it now. Genova takes a risk and has her puppet Sephiroth take control of the whispers to overcome the fearful fate the part will overcome. That is a possibility. The other possibility is obviously that Sephiroth is the one who wants to take over, but that his goal is not necessarily something that is more pure. So this is the nuance. It's just about who is calling the shots, because this Sephiroth thinks he wants to save the planet, but inevitably, especially as what we're seeing in Rebirth, and even in Remake, because the script here, and we will read it, says that Sephiroth essentially realizes that Cloud is not going to help, so he has to toy with him. But I want to bring attention to one thing. So Cloud is, once again, unconscious. Of course he is. Wakes up, sees that Sephiroth is there. This is possibly the Sephiroth. Sephiroth is dead. We got to remember this. So this is possibly the one place where his consciousness can exist. It is trapped here. Now, what is, according to the devs, Cloud bears the burden of the universe of death, or the dying universe, the dying world, whereas Sephiroth bears the burden of the world created, or whatever it's called. This is, once again, Bunke, you've just been saying it. This aligns perfectly with abandoning Genova's control over things and looking at what Sephiroth wants to do.
By the way, that glitch effect there, where you see the headache, I believe that this is where it talks about that Cloud, Sephiroth showing Cloud the 7 seconds from the end.
Yeah.
This is where he sees it, but he says, "Careful now, What lie here does not yet exist. And then that's when he goes into his speech about helping him defy destiny. And this is kind of, I think you can understand this in two ways. Destiny is the planet being destroyed. He doesn't want the planet to be destroyed.
Yes.
And B, he doesn't want Cloud to be Genoa's puppet either. So there's actually two destiny he's trying to, now he is not have good intentions. Let me get that straight. He does not have good intentions, but he understands at least that Genova is no good. This is the enlightened Sephiroth, if I can call it in a way, that he realizes that all that stuff about being a god, and then he's probably going to tell Cloud in the third game, look at the Gi. That's how I would have ended up had I taken her deal.
Exactly. And all of that will be conveyed here. Let's Mosey says the Ultimania says he's being torn into in that moment. He's still a naughty boy. Once thought the edge of creation stuff didn't happen the way he wanted, and he's in timeout. Yeah, it's possible. It's possible that the edge of creation is Genova put in Sephiroth in timeout because he remembers it in his own memories in the first soldier. Sephiroth holding the hand to separate Cloud from Genova. That's also possible. His intentions are not necessarily pure. He is different, but he's not necessarily more pure than Genova Sephiroth. And I will tell you why. Once we read this, I think you guys will come to the same conclusion. Right. 7 seconds till the end. This is voice script from the remake material Ultimania Plus. Cloud stands alone in the void of outer space. A gaseous nebula spreads out before him. He surveys his surroundings with bewilderment. With a pounding sound effect, his body splits and then rejoins. His head spins. With each step, his body threatens to slip apart. Obviously, we don't see him walking here, but this is just a voice script, so obviously it might have been rendered a bit differently. When he stops walking, it returns to one piece. This is his body split in when time passes, essentially. When he stops walking, time stops, I imagine. Cloud appears to stumble and nearly falls down. Just then, a hand grips Cloud's arm and helps him to his feet. The hand's owner is Sephiroth. Careful now, that which lies ahead does not yet exist. Cloud shakes Sephiroth off and draws back. Still with his attention on Cloud, Sephiroth turns away and looks at the nebula. It's said our planet will become a part of it, but I don't want to disappear, nor would I have you disappear. We'll talk about what the nebula looks like, by the way. This is the edge of creation. I need your strength, Cloud. Will you join me in defying destiny? Sephiroth holds out his hand. Cloud feels the urge to take it. As if to curb the impulse, he grabs the Buster Sword. I won't. This is a bit different, obviously, than what we see, because this is the right translation, okay? With a troubled expression, this is courtesy of Turquoise Hammer, which I'm sure a lot here know. With a troubled expression, Sephiroth parries Cloud's assault, and the two trade blows for a brief time. Too weak. It's not yet. That is a big mistranslation. I think the literal translation is too light, and here you could localize it to too weak, which makes total sense. Sephiroth regains his distance and readies his katana once again, now making a slightly more serious effort. His speed drastically increases and Cloud can't keep up. It's as if the fight he's put up so far was nothing more than a lie. Unable to move his limbs, Cloud's Buster Sword is sent flying and Sephiroth ends up at his back. Sephiroth gently brings his mouse to Cloud's ear. 7 seconds till the end, but it's not too late. Sephiroth flashes a menacing smile. If the two don't join forces, he'll have no choice but to lead Cloud by the nose, as he has up to this point. This is why this Sephiroth seems like he has pure intentions, but ultimately, he does not. He just wants to toy with Cloud, because this Sephiroth refuses to take no for an answer. He thinks, so he remembers, because he's in the first soldier, we see him at the edge of creation. We see him in this exact same space, dreaming or reminiscing about his life. And he's like, okay, well, the planet is going to die. I don't want to die. I want to do something else. I want to reject. This is his inability to accept death in full-fledged, in 4K. And once Cloud tells him, I don't help you, and he realizes that if Cloud doesn't help him, then he can't control him and he can't do what he wants to do because he's dead. Physically, he can't do what he wants to do, right? So he needs Cloud's help. Once he realizes that, he's like, well, I'm going to have to toy with you. I'm going to have to control you by the nose, as I have been doing so far. The nebula has been referenced in Dirge of Cerberus as something that looks like the cosmos that the planet returns to once it dies. So that's a good reference.
Yeah, because in the storyboard it refers to that background as the universe of death and the universe of creation.
Exactly.
Which we and it just makes sense here that that there's a Dirge of Cerberus reference here, because remember, Nomura said that they can't even do a remake of Dirge of Cerberus because it would spoil the ending to remake.
Yeah. Exactly. And you know what? It's also consistent with the idea that in Dirge of Cerberus, we're shown that we should accept that the planet has its own not will, but that the Lifestream can literally just decide to leave and go somewhere else. And that the Lifestream does not end, but the physical plane that the planet is on ends, but the Lifestream itself can go somewhere else. So this is the most important distinction. And this is why the planet itself has a cycle of life and death. And this is why Sephiroth wants to stop that cycle, because he refuses death. He refuses his own death, and he refuses the planet's death. This is the only reason why he's doing what he's doing. And this is the biggest fundamental difference he has with Aerith, is that she also understands how hard it is to let things go, to let people die, to let memories go, but she also understands that it's necessary for new life to begin. Sephiroth's actions are very dangerous to the cycle itself because they risk undoing it, and they risk essentially trapping everyone in a purgatory, an eternal hell. Whereas Aerith is like, you have to let people return and not trap them in a state of being stuck between the planet, the physical life, and the core of the planet or whatever. And that's where they differ.
Oh, you mean the Gi, right?
Yeah, just like the Gi, exactly. Look how that worked out for them, right?
Right.
Let's Mosey says, this is two realities aligned due to recreating the edge of creation moment from the OG reality and the remake iteration of the same event in one, temporarily synchronized. Absolutely. It's very, very well. It's like a almost faithful kind of reinterpretation of that. Not gonna lie.
It's intentional because it shows that Cloud is not whole yet. That's why he can't defeat Sephiroth, and that's why Sephiroth says it's too weak. Because actually, if you see there, he actually repeats the Omni Slash. You actually see him do that, do the Omni Slash moves where he just disappears and reappears. In fact, you see it again in Advent Children. But you can see that the Advent Children version is way more spectacular than the one that you see in remake. The remake, what you saw there at Edge of Creation was just a dud, a poor facsimile. And the fact of the matter is that remember that this isn't the Genova version of Sephiroth, which will be still a pale comparison to the real one. This is the real consciousness of Sephiroth.
Correct.
I mean, if Cloud's anything but 100%, he has no chance of defeating Sephiroth.
And I repeat, this is the only place where Sephiroth can exist. We know that because the moment Cloud beats him here in the OG, the crisis is finally over. The Lifestream is not absorbed by Sephiroth. This is the only... He is dead in reality. So this is why he's pulling the strings all from here. This is why when we beat him at the end of Rebirth, he's laughing. And Aerith is like, he knows this isn't over. Because if he disappears from this space and he dissolves into the Lifestream here, then we can say that Sephiroth has finally gone. Now, is there a scene where we see him dissolve from this specific area? I wonder. You know what's following this, guys. You know what's coming up next. I wonder if there is a scene where we see that Sephiroth dissolves in the one place he's able to survive in. We never see it in Rebirth, but we see it here, my friend. This is why Sephiroth, personally, in the OG, it was never clarified or intended that way. But I believe that the explanation that will be given in Remake is that this is the moment his true consciousness returned to the Lifestream. And the only thing... Look at how red and white break out of him. Part of him could be going to the Lifestream, whereas the red part could be what is left of him. Because, the purple connection with Genova wasn't as big in the OG, right? In Remake, it's much more apparent. So it could be just evil. Red Lifestream like the Gi, exactly. This is the memory of him that remains. This is what On the Way to a Smile specifically describes. And it says, the man gave away his memories of when he was a child, his battles, all the stuff that he doesn't care about, and he only held on to the other side of memories.
Which also is a fatal flaw in the sequel, because
Yeah.
because in the first soldier you see the edge of you see Sephiroth at the edge of creation. And he's clearly reminiscing the memories, so that means that this couldn't have been past that point, because it says on the way to a smile he always surrendered those memories back to the planet.
Yes, absolutely.
Clearly he's reminiscing there, so it's obviously this takes place before that.
That's right before, exactly. And I think this is the biggest hint we have of that. A couple of additional notes. What Toriyama says about this specific scene, I hope I have it here, but he says essentially that if something happens, so essentially he's saying that please take this scene a little bit literally. This is again one of the ideas where it brings us to the perspective that maybe this is happening. You know, one thought that I had while watching this is, let's imagine the following scenario. Let's imagine that what we've been experiencing is that Cloud is able to jump into different time spans of his consciousness. Cloud's consciousness and memories are one flat line, for example. But because of his state, imagine that he's able to go to the present, as in memories of his, you know, when he was doing something in the Beagle world, the bombing mission, for example. But because of his state of Mako poisoning, he can go to the future and see what happens when he tries to fight Sephiroth at the last moment before the planet is destroyed. And he can go back to life, to regular life, or what looks like regular life, but is essentially just a memory because of it, because the consciousness and the unconscious does not have a concept of time or space. If his consciousness is diving inside his own psyche, he will not be able to differentiate what is present, what is past, what is future. And I think this could be one of the reveals. It's the fact that whenever he's been going, so he sees the future and he sees how the party behaves in the future. It's not only in his head, it's true things that have happened, but he is time traveling spiritually to what happens, to what will happen, to when they come back to Midgar and try to beat Sephiroth so that they stop Meteor, for example. Or what happens here at the Edge of Creation when he tries to beat him towards the end, but this time he fails because he's not ready yet. There are a lot of ways this could happen, but it's just to remember that he will be central to everything that is related to killing Sephiroth once and for all. The most important thing would be stopping him.
The white materia might be that give him that exact ability to be able to actually be, because I think, again, going back to what I was saying last week about the Temple of the Ancients, the Time Guardian, that they maybe be able to use the materia to glimpse at the possibilities of the future and use that. And that was how they was able to to develop a counter around Meteor. And able to actually have something that could save the planet. It wasn't just blind luck. They were able to peer into the future, into the live stream, because to your point, that the live stream does not have there's no such thing as time and space, space time. By the way, you're about to show Toriyama's statement about the 7 seconds from the end. That's why he says take it literally, because it's talking about the meteor. It talks about the OG ending there. That's why he says to take it literally, because unless the live stream comes up and repels meteor, the planet's done for. That's what he said. The path of space-time has to be changed. So that's what you see at the OG. You see the live stream coming to the surface and surrounding meteor and repelling it.
Exactly. And it doesn't mean that the entirety of a remake has to be... It's still one of my favorite ideas, but there are still possible time frames within the OG where this could be happening. Because if we follow the idea that I just spoke about of Cloud's consciousness being able to travel to different periods in... Because remember, we just saw that Red 13... can get fearful visions from an unconscious future that only he has lived. So that is essentially almost his consciousness traveling to that future, right? We can interpret it that way. What if this is exactly what Cloud is experiencing? His consciousness travels between what looks like the present and this moment in time, but this moment in time does take place right before the live stream saves the planet. And is necessary for the live stream to save the planet. So he's back and forth. He's going back and forth between these two times. And that would make this, the fact that we need to take this sentence literally, very much consistent. Here's what Toriyama says, to your point, Bunke. Could you please Tell us what implication is hidden in the Latin phrase 7 seconds till the end. The area in space where Cloud and Sephiroth confront each other in the final scene is a place that one might call the end of the world. It's the edge of space-time where the planet will one day end up, a location in which time seems to have stopped, because Meteor is tearing up the Lifestream, which makes total sense. The planet has only a brief amount of time left, which is symbolized by the line about 7 seconds remaining. When does that happen? This happens in the OG. Why are we assuming that it's time travel into the far, far, far future? There is already in the OG a time span where the planet has only a brief amount of time left. It's right before the party saves it. When time resumes its flow, whether the end really will come after 7 seconds or whether some sort of force will act to change the course of space-time is, as Sephiroth says, contingent upon Cloud. Why is it contingent upon Cloud? Because Cloud beating the last version of the consciousness, the true consciousness of Sephiroth, is the key. He either beats him here and we get the ending of the OG, or he does not beat him and we get another ending. Do we think that we're going to get an ending where he does not beat him? Is that going to be the new good ending? I would tend to defer, but anyways, this I think is the meaning of the phrase. It's very plainly laid out, I believe.
And that's really the crutch of the remake story. If I were to boil it down in one sentence, is that it's the OG Final Fantasy VII story, but embellished and using different language, but it's describing the same event.
Exactly.
I mean, when you look at, because I mean, I don't blame people. They wanted this to happen. They wanted people to take that statement and run with it. Oh, this must be 5,000 years in the future. The planet's about to die, and so Sephiroth went back in time because he doesn't want to die. And I mean, I understand why people think the way it is, but really, the answer is much simpler than that. It's just talking about Meteor.
Absolutely. And someone is saying the colorful nebula is in the Lifestream. That is not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the Lifestream one day the planet one day returns to what looks like the cosmic Lifestream. Let me explain. Let me show you where that is set. So if we go to Dirge of Cerberus Cloud scenes, there is one scene here and we will see exactly what they say, okay? We showed this last time, but I think it's an interesting one. I think this is one that is really worth a look, right? A couple of times. This is literally the nebula that he looks at, by the way. It literally looks like it. So this is in Dirge of Cerberus, right before they get to Midgar, I believe, and they are on the Shera. And you have Sid, Yuffie, Vincent, and Reeve, and they get a vision from the research of Lucrezia. Yes, they said that the colorful nebula is the dying universe. I believe that that's the path that the planet follows where it dies. Let's just listen to this because it's kind of consistent with that. So this is Lucrezia's research, okay? I believe, if I remember well, yeah.
What the? Are we in? What?
The edge of creation, all of a sudden.
Return to the planet when our lifelight is faded. The planet returns to the cosmos when her time has come.
This is the cosmos. This is almost the same nebula that he's looking at. So this is why Sephiroth does not want this process to happen. He refuses that the planet one day dies. He refuses his death. He refuses Cloud's death. He refuses the planet's death. This is why he's a tragic villain. In a way, he is not, had to go lay down. Can't wait to watch everything. Roland, very excited, yeah, to get your feedback. Because we went into a lot of stuff. Wow, this was such a comprehensive look at it.
And Steve, you know, the one thing that I wanted to point out is that unlike the other Sephiroth, which we discussed earlier, is really Genova wearing Sephiroth's face, talking about creating eternity, right? But remember, the Edge of Creation Sephiroth, he actually admitted that one day the planet is going to return to the cosmic life. I mean, one day it will return there, but
Exactly.
I won't end. And I won't have you end. So I mean, this is a little bit another difference, another contradiction. And this Sephiroth actually resigns to the fact that eventually the planet will die. And it's just how it is. It's just, but he's going to find a way. In fact, I'm not even sure have we even seen what the true Sephiroth's plans actually are. We know what the Genova version is up to because that's in the OG. But this is a little bit of an expansion because now we're going to see what the true Sephiroth's goal is, and we will need to. All we know right now is that he needs Cloud's help, which
Yeah.
is already an aberration because I mean the Genova version would need nothing from Cloud other than to be his puppet.
Absolutely, that is a great point. If the Sephiroth wants anything from Cloud, it is either to do something for him that he can't do, and what Sephiroth can't do is to physically be on the planet, to physically be in reality. This is the one thing he can't do. So it makes total sense, and we get in a Star Wars recreation here, but it makes total sense that he's not able to exist on the physical plane because he's dead. So it makes total sense that he tells him, I need you to help me. But the Genova version of Sephiroth, as you said, is able to manipulate robes, is able to manipulate Cloud, and so does not necessarily need his approval. Almost, it's a sad way of saying it, but it does not even need his approval. Sephiroth here, this is why I agree with, I think it's Let's Mosey who said it earlier, it's possibly the last fragment of humanity pre-corruption Sephiroth. I totally agree with that. Unfortunately, I think what the story is also showing us is that his motivations are at odds with what should really happen in that acceptance. He has never reached acceptance. So maybe what he really needs to do is reach acceptance. And this is what I speak about in the last Sephiroth video. Like his biggest, let's say, limit so far is that he's not able, not seeing his good, exactly. He's different. He's human. It's him. But he is unable to accept, and if he wants to be at peace, then he inevitably needs to accept that return to the planet, and that everything needs to return to the planet.
Right. I mean, if you was talking about earlier about confronting fear, Sephiroth fears death.
Absolutely.
And it's something and eventually I believe we're on the same page that there's no redemption arc for Sephiroth. It's not possible because the fact of the matter is he's part alien. And even though he may not realize it, he is still being influenced by Genova because it's literally part of his nature. Even though that he is cognizant what Genova is up to, he can't, buried within him, he can't totally separate himself from Genova because, when they say that, I, son of Genova, that's really not a hyperbole. I mean, Genova really technically is his mother. He carries his DNA just like we carry our mother's DNA.
Absolutely. And Let's Mosey, when you said this, I want you please to go and watch the last Sephiroth video I posted in January. Because you're saying salvation, maybe not redemption, freedom from Genova, but that would mean freedom from existence. Yes. I will just let that sequence play because I kind of reached personally the same conclusion. And I think when you look at Sephiroth's arc, it makes total sense that he needs redemption or salvation. It's written here, redemption or salvation, right? Let's see what the idea was.
In fact, it already plays out that way at the end of Rebirth, because as soon as Cloud, who Sephiroth now simply lives through, gets his hands on the black materia, the worlds are.
I love this part because this is when I knew something was really wrong. Because the Sephiroth here, he's not really even interested in the black materia at this point. He's more interested in Cloud. Than the black materia. It's like then you start to understand that this is all about Cloud. And you know what? And I actually think that reunion really refers to Genova being reborn inside of Cloud. When she's talking about him being his puppet, she really means that. That's what.
Exactly.
That's the battle here. Is the true Cloud going to return to Cloud's to the real Cloud, or is it going to be the puppet that's going to ultimately survive? That's really what it boils down to, and that's the two futures that we see.
Exactly. And someone says Sephiroth probably never thought about death until he died. Josephine says that. Yeah, totally. I think that, he hasn't lived a normal life of a human, so naturally he cannot accept the process of death like normal humans do. But Lucrezia is his mother. He had Genova cells injected into the body while in the womb. Yeah, well, as it stands, he thinks Genova is his mother, right? We don't know what Edge of Creation thinks, Sephiroth thinks. It's possible that he also thinks that it's Genova still. And Vincent could pop up in the Edge of Creation and solve all of it by telling him that his real mother is Lucrezia, and tell him that's the picture of Lucrezia. That's one of the followers of the channel came up with this idea. I think it's Brian Hickman. That was a brilliant one because he just needs to hear one sentence. Your mother was also human, and this is what she did, and she died. Genova is not your mother. it solves the whole planet crisis. It's insane. It's funny he uses the fear of death with Geostigma. Yeah, I saw that you mentioned before that Geostigma needs to find people who want to die or are in despair. I think it's the opposite. I do think that Geostigma kind of comes in, finds people who are not necessarily looking for despair or death or whatever, and I think that it instills that in them. The best example is probably, well, first one is Cloud, although he does have his past, but Cloud for a year or so up until the last moments before Advent Children was still doing fine. So I'd like to think that it goes to people who are still doing fine. And the other example is Gilligan with Nanaki, which we saw at the beginning of the stream, or like somewhere in the middle, where Nanaki is not really someone that you would think of in the sense that he is susceptible to manipulation or whatever, right? Because he is able to see into the live stream and is kind of has a connection with the planet, more or less like the Cetra. But he still has that fear of the, not the unknown, but fear of loss from a far distant future. And I think that's a big, big hint that it does not only attack vulnerable people, but it attacks all sort of people, everyone on the planet. But I still think it's necessary because we will talk about this one day, but Geostigma is the reminder to humanity that we should not toy with spiritual energy in the planet. This is why I've been saying that as it stands, I think we can we'll wrap up soon, so we can switch away from just looking at stuff here. But essentially, we don't necessarily. Yeah, there you go. We don't necessarily. So, for a story to have its beginning, its ending, right? There are tension points that are very important. Right? So something like, for example, Nojima might say the resolution of this is that Meteor needs to happen this way and the live stream needs to... The live stream erupting serves a purpose. If you are going to come with an ending that kind of undoes that, you need to replace with something that serves the same purpose. There is an emotional objective or a message behind that, or there is a narrative reason why the live stream, for example, erupts, or why Holy is suppressed, or why a lot of things happen. And so if you do change that, you really need to, you change the whole balance, and it becomes very, very, very difficult to be able to, it's almost as if you're writing a new story. If FF7 does not lead into Advent Children, you're almost writing a new story. And I don't like to say it that way, but yeah, almost writing a new story.
Right. I mean, the thing about it, though, is that that's the part that if you undo Advent Children, then you undo the true healing of Cloud, because that means that Cloud will never advance beyond, learning to forgive himself. Because I mean, right now we're in trying to get him to accept what happened. And then that's the part where he has to forgive himself for what has happened. That's Advent Children. So I mean, it's going through the stages of grief. Right now he's in the denial phase, and we got to get him to confront what actually happened, and and accept that. And then there's the part where he has to learn to let go of it. And I mean, it's a beautiful story. It's a beautiful story. And so, I mean, that's why I don't quite get the argument about, well, what was the point of all of this if it wasn't to defy? I mean, defying the fate of being another Genova clone or another puppet is enough for me. I mean, because it saves the world. It saves the world. So that's enough for me. And it's to show Cloud's journey, and because he had a really messed up childhood and younger and teenagehood, all up to what he's done is remarkable. It's a great story, and I don't understand why people want to cut that short.
I do want to, yeah, I agree with you. On the flip side, I also see that, as we said before, it seems that On the Way to a Smile or Advent Children does not do a good job of explaining why things are the way they are, right?
Yeah.
For example,
a lot of context, yeah.
I do feel that if you have, okay, let's start hyping part 3 up now while before we wrap up. Imagine that you get to actually experience On the Way to a Smile as part of the third game. And you get something like an epilogue or even a DLC where you see them rebuild and you see the emotional impact that Meteor has had on everyone. You see how Cloud is essentially coming back to his true self and is now smiling and is trying to find a job. You see that Cloud is trying to find a job and you tell me that people are not going to get emotional when that happens, I feel like that is what they need. Maybe that's what they mean when they say we need a happier ending for everyone, is to essentially just present to us On the Way to a Smile in a new form and Advent Children, and even give us maybe a time jump towards the future right after Advent Children, or Dirge of Cerberus, where they tell us, well, 20 years after, these guys were still enjoying their time here. And despite everything that's happened, they were able to rebuild. Humanity lived on. That's what the 500-year flash forward did. But maybe it needs to be more personal with the characters. This is where I would agree that maybe the game needs to do the third part needs to do a better job at than Advent Children. Let's Mosey, gotta hop off. Thank you so much. Great to have you here.
Yes, thank you.
I think that it makes a case for itself. Please give us some playable Advent Children segments, not because we want to get them out of the way. I really hope that it's not interpreted as getting them out of the way, but because I feel that On the Way to a Smile is extremely important to understanding Advent Children, understanding the ending. I just remember,
I was just going to say though, is that again, if I would love it, and we talked about this earlier. If Advent Children is playable in the third part, that would be such a great way, because I mean, we talked about this earlier, but imagine those who have played Crisis Core but haven't played the OG. But if they play Crisis Core, even if they skip Remake and go from Crisis Core to Rebirth to the third game, they will still get most of the story. You know, and I mean, it's something that, I think that was intentional by the developers. They said it, that we would not need to play the OG to understand Remake, and that's why I had to really recontextualize things and realize that the whole sequel thing makes it too convoluted, and someone who's new to the Final Fantasy VII story wouldn't be able to follow. It would just be easier just to tell the Final Fantasy VII story. It's just told through a different perspective, and that's exactly what Hamaguchi said. Seeing things through a world view, seeing things differently. In fact, there's even a quote there where he hopes that people will go back and look when they play the remake through a different lens.
He did say that in the latest interview. He says, I hope that when you get to experience the third part, it will make you want to go. I know that could be marketing, preparing for a bundle, a mega bundle, which has Remake, Rebirth, and I don't know, Return, Reunion, whatever. But I could still get behind that. I personally, and we've been speaking about this a lot off camera or off live, is that I personally think that the replayability of parts 1 and 2, once part 3 is out, is going to be amazing. It's going to be like you are rediscovering the game and the story from scratch. I can't wait for that. But if you give us a conclusion, to summarize it, the conclusion does not have to be different in order for it to be happy. I feel like we have come to a state where if the conclusion is not different, there is no way for it to be happy. And that's what I strongly push back on. The conclusion can still be different, just expanded on a bit more, and shown through a different lens. You just plug in On the Way to a Smile again as 2-3 chapters. You already got your recontextualization. You don't even need to release Advent Children. Just give us On the Way to a Smile.
Mm-hmm.
As part of the game.
And again, I think that once you experience that On the Way to a Smile, you will actually be able to look at Advent Children through a different lens. And again, to your point, they say, will the ending be the same? No, the ending will change, but it doesn't mean that the story is changing. It's just that they're giving you more of it for you to come to a proper conclusion. I mean, that's what Nojima is talking about, that it won't be open to interpretation like the original was. Because the original, everyone knows that the original story had a very ambiguous ending. So, and some of it was unintentional. And even with Advent Children, some people still think that the ending was ambiguous because we didn't see Jenova / Sephiroth like blown to smithereens like we saw at the end of OG with Sephiroth. But remember, you saw 500 years later, the planet was surviving, even with Genova still being in the live stream. So apparently, those two are not mutually exclusive. So I mean, so we just gotta we have to re-examine it and realize that it doesn't need to be that Sephiroth and Genova have to be totally destroyed for there to be a happy ending.
That's exactly it. It's that if you're, especially if you're depicting a real human-like ending,
Yeah.
is evil totally wiped out from real life? It is not. And Final Fantasy VII really tries to emulate a human experience. And so having the need for us to completely wipe out evil is essentially a misunderstanding of the sacrifices that humanity needs to do in order to be even remotely close to wiping out evil. And I believe that Final Fantasy VII OG does a great job at showing you that humanity did not have a choice towards the end, but to accept that they need to change their ways and resort to more planet, nature-friendly ways. That's something, ironically, looking for oil was better than looking for than using Mako within the world and universe of Final Fantasy VII. But you can kind of get the message there, which was that living within the means we have is sometimes the best course of action you can do. And Josephine here kind of made me a bit emotional, saying, remember this moment. We won't get to play for the first time again. We have to. The slapping match should come in under the highway. Much love to you for all this stuff. I'm going to miss these theories. Thank you so much. It's the thing, like I try to say this every time. I want everyone to have a conversation. I want to have a conversation with everyone personally. If you like Final Fantasy, we can talk about Final Fantasy VII and any other Final Fantasy out of the ones I played. And you know, the ending doesn't matter. The sequel doesn't matter. The remake angle doesn't matter. I just don't like that we have become so divided that we can't even sit and have a conversation between these groups which totally disagree. So this is why I really appreciate that people who completely disagree with some of our views are still popping up. And like Materia Hunter here, for example, saying you think that Sephiroth and Genova has to be perma-gone. That's an opinion that, you know, you have the right to have that opinion. And there is no reason for us to not be able to discuss it. It's just that recently I feel like we're jumping to labels. You're a shipper, so I'm not going to talk to you. You're a sequel believer, I'm not going to talk to you. You believe that it's a remake, I'm not going to talk to you. And I don't like that, especially that we will never get to live through this era once again, just as you said.
Yes, I mean, once the mystery is over, it's over. Everyone should enjoy this train ride because it is about to come to an end. We're about to see the curtains pull back and we're going to see the entire story for what it is. I believe that eventually, I think that the ending will be, just like most great works, is going to be controversial. There's definitely going to be a part of the fan base that expected something different, even though that they have been pretty consistent that this will honor the original story. But people were hoping that they will lie about that and make it out into something else, and they weren't. They never said that they would. I mean, they told you that they wanted to keep the interest. They wanted to keep you on your toes. But I mean, that's natural. I mean, after all, this is a business. They got to keep you interested. Otherwise, if they would have done the one-to-one remake and not change anything, then I mean, after about 6 months, it would die off and be like, okay, what else? What else is there to play? You know, but what they're doing is, as Hamaguchi said, they set the narrative in a way where it keeps you guessing into the very end. But remember, it says that it's the tagline is, it's the unknown journey, not the unknown conclusion or the unknown destination.
Absolutely. I'm not going to be able to phrase it better than that. So I'm going to avoid bouncing back on the same point. And you said that just like all good stories, it will have an ending and it will have to come to an end. Another thing that will have to come to an end is this stream, because we have dived into so many things. I'm so happy that we were able to do this. To end it on a good, positive, funny note, Josephine says, Roland says they will use the same sounds to cover the slap fights and Under the High Wind.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Oh my gosh.
You're really going there, aren't you?
Oh wow, the Final Fantasy VII comedy. Oh yes. Yeah, I mean, you know what? I love just my final thought. I love the adult comedy in Final Fantasy VII, in the original and in remake. It is such. I mean, when Cloud got his hand massage, I nearly lost my mind. I mean, it hurt. I was laughing to the point my stomach, it was painful, but it was great. The sound that he was making, it was just absolutely, yeah, this is why I love it. And that's why I say that, hey, enjoy the ride, man. Enjoy the ride.
Exactly. I think if you appreciate over the top humor, I think you appreciate Final Fantasy VII humor, because sometimes it's over the top. Like they like the chicken side quest. Like they
Right.
know what they know what you're thinking, and they're like, we're gonna dial it even higher than that. And I just, there are moments where I don't like the some sequences, but for the most part, it's also hilarious to me.
Yes.
It's so cool. Are you saying enjoy the ride to Tifa? Oh my god, you guys, listen. This stream probably has to end because it's running wild, and Roland is on a roll. So we will probably have to wrap it up. You guys let me know what you want to see next week. There is the Cosmo Canyon dialogue. There is so much NPC stuff in Cosmo Canyon other than the... Materia Hunter, yeah, you've missed a lot. To answer your question earlier. The VOD will be here. Timestamps will be here, everyone. So we will be able to hopefully break it up to sections that are more or less manageable, although we've been jumping back and forth between past, present, future, just like Cloud's consciousness, just to kind of link it to what we just spoke about. But the VOD will be up. Would love to get your thoughts once you check it out. Next week, maybe the Cosmo Canyon NPCs, just because there's a lot. So maybe we can go through it manually through the PS5 and see the PS5 version, obviously, just see how that links to the meta plot that we have. I know that the one about my parents are living in a different plane, blah, 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 is the most famous one. I can guarantee you that there are so many other pieces of NPC dialogue that I haven't seen discussed. There is one, for example, where it says the true evil is the one coming from without, but not those who are from within. And I can't think of a better analogy to tell you that the true evil is Genova, not necessarily humans or Sephiroth or whatever we can think of. There is one that tells you that, for example, we are as much part of the planet as it is part of us. As in, if you look inward, you can see the planet. And this is great, again, in the context of the dreams we are talking about, the unconscious, Cloud's journey, all this kind of stuff. So maybe that's what we do. If you guys listen, you can let me know in the chat or in the comments if there is any other breakdown that you would like us to jump to. Maybe there is a video that we want to react to. There's a lot of stuff to be done. Thank you so much to everyone who has been here. Bunkei, thank you so much for jumping in, my friend.
You too. Thank you for having me on. You guys join us on Discord. We'd love to talk to you further. Until then, sayonara.
Amazing. Thank you so much to everyone who has joined. The Discord here is in the chat, guys. We talk theory stuff on a daily basis. There are so many people now there. I really love it. It's a great vibe with people who think about stuff differently. So it leads to great conversations, but it's also chill. It's not too big of a server yet. Let's make it bigger. Please like the stream. Please subscribe if it's not already the case. If you're watching on Twitch, please make sure you follow, because now Twitch will probably become something regular we do along with YouTube. Good night. Good afternoon to everyone who is still in the afternoon time zone. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. Take care of yourselves and talk to you next week.